Welcome to Stick Drift. This is the third one. I'm happy that we have made three of these now. This will be our
It's
third.
crazy.
How are you doing, Noah? You doing all right?
Yeah, doing great. I feel like we're finally getting to where we're comfortable with this. We kind of have our
Yep,
setup going. We're getting
totally.
a bit more confident, I think, with the overall podcast. Maybe even getting our audio issues solved. So,
Let's hope. I mean, this is probably the best shot we've had at it for
yeah,
sure.
we're
So,
really trying this time to be as
we're
professional
dialing
as
in.
possible, right? So,
Yeah, 100%,
on a
100%.
casual
Um,
podcast.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, we this is going to be kind of an action-packed show. We got a lot going on just between the both of us. I mean, it's been kind of a come down from the Halloween season. We've been playing some spooky stuff here and there, but it's that segue into the Christmas break that I'm really interested to talk about later in the show. And yeah, we've kind of broken out some topics here left and right, but I wanted to start with the off week stuff that we had the VN podcast, the Crash Course.
Yeah.
I know I really enjoyed it. I think honestly, when it comes to audio, that was the one that we got the closest on. We're like, hey, we need to match everything to this level. So the VN stuff. I guess how heartbroken are you that you forgot the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog on?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I was like, really trying to like pull together like what all I wanted to include in that. But yeah, I just
Yeah,
messed up missing out on like, and it's not like entirely a VN, right? It's a little bit like point and click adventure too, but
right,
it's got the elements in there to where I would have liked to at least include it in like the honorable mentions sort of at the beginning that I did. But if you haven't
right.
played that, that's a really good short story that they put out for like April Fools. It was a lot of
Hmm.
fun. I remember.
Yeah, it's from Sega. I mean,
Yeah,
they actually put it out. It's not like a fan game.
no,
Because the one thing about Sonic fans is they will make a game and they don't care, what it looks like necessarily, or they think they do better than even the developers. They feel kind of like a slight twinge of pain, saying, "Hey, these games are bad. Let's make a good one."
uh huh.
Um, but yeah, I just find that really funny. You mentioned that to me after I listened to it. I'm like, yeah, that seems like an oversight, but I enjoyed the conversation otherwise. So
It's
conversation with
just
you
been a
yourself, I
while
mean.
since I played that one, so I couldn't like it just wasn't
Right.
in the forefront of my mind when I was doing the research for that video. Which I mean, I didn't,
Yeah.
as I said in the video, I'm not really an expert on the topic. I just wanted
Hmm.
to get people like interested in it a little bit, do their own research, check out some of the stuff that I was talking about. Even if I was talking about it in like any sort of negative light, just know that like it's just my opinion on that sort of stuff,
Yeah,
and like I'm not gonna
for
hold
sure.
it to like anyone. And I as I said, I think all of the everything that I talked about in there had some sort of artistic intent put into it at the end of the day, right? And so
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I
we're
think there's a little nugget to get out of everything you kind of broached on.
yeah, yeah,
Just
absolutely,
that little piece of like, hey, why should you be interested in this? Like, it's VNs and why you should care,
yeah,
right? I like that. It's finding like the not the gist. It's like the germ of the idea, the thing that you're like, hey, this is why this is important. This is why I care about it. It's kind of like that the juice conversation I had a couple weeks ago in my crash course. What makes these games special? Why do I think they stand out?
yeah,
And I think you kind of had your own version of that talking about beans. I really,
yeah,
really enjoyed it. And honestly, I started listening to it again today because I was like, okay, what were the titles? Because the first one I was just like listening to it. Second was like, okay, what are the ones I actually sound interesting to me that
sure,
I want to play? So
yeah,
yeah,
and
that stuff is great. I love having that off week format where we can just break out and talk about whatever, honestly. And we're going
yeah,
to have something else next week. We're going to kind of have a double feature next week, which we'll get into kind of at the end of the show and closing. But
nice.
yeah, the end discussion was fantastic. I honestly more that I would be super down to listen to. No, so
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think we're necessarily going to always have these sort of topics be
yeah,
like games you should play.
hmm
But it's a good topic starting out, right? It's just like we don't know
yeah,
what else
yeah,
to talk about in the crash course. Just minimal effort and research, right? Goes into these sort of like, yeah, these are things that are interesting. You should check them out,
hmm
and they might not all
yeah,
be vetted by us every single time, but like they're just stuff that's like, yeah, go out there, do your own, research, and that's kind of what the show is about, right? It's just giving exposure to stuff that we think is interesting.
Yeah, yeah, basically like putting you into the know about stuff we like and why we like them without going too terribly far and deep down the rabbit hole where we actually could talk at length. Yeah. It's kind of like it's a quick look at something we are interested in. And if you are interested in it, it is a good way to kind of take a sneak peek, right, into a given subject. So I really like that format. I think it's going to be really good for us as we kind of flex our muscles and figure out what we actually want to talk about in our off weeks. But yeah, the VN pod for Crash Course was excellent. I loved it. So Halloween's over. We have had the All Hallows Eve come and go. We've had the Halloween night come and go. Do you get any trick-or-treaters? Like, do you get any of that at your place?
No.
I don't think anybody does,
Not in an apartment. Like, that's not...
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Well, we didn't even have it at our house this year. Like, I mean, sometimes we'll get like 1 or 2 trick-or-treaters. I think, honestly, trunk or treat.
Yes, I was going to say, trunk or treat is what everyone's going to. And I mean...
Yeah.
It's easier and it's safer. Like, those are the two main things, right? It's safer and it's easier, and so parents just take their kids to these, big places with tons of, friendly folks that really want to hand out candy, right? You don't set up a trunk or treat unless if you really want to hand out candy, And so
and usually it's like inviting that way, where they decorate their trunks, and it's a more attractive proposition for a family of any size, honestly. Yeah. I thought about taking my daughter Audrey to one this year. We figured she was a little too young still, because she's like, our daughter's like an avocado. She's got a shelf life. You can only enjoy her at certain times of the day before she kind of goes overripe and needs to go to bed. That's kind of how it goes. And Halloween, we figured, was kind of like that because it was near her bedtime. We figured, like, hey, this would be great, but maybe she won't get as much out of it. She loves candy. Who doesn't love candy?
Right.
We don't try to give her a ton of it. Sugar goes a long way. But we figured that it was probably, like, not the right time quite yet. So we found ourselves looking, but not really seizing upon anything this year. So that might change next year. I don't really know. But, yeah, Halloween's over. And apparently Christmas is happening in my house. I mean, we've been watching a bunch of B-tier Christmas movies, and we'll get into the what we're watching portion at the very end. But there's no good Thanksgiving movies. That's really what it is. I mean, honestly, like, there's like that Eli Roth slasher movie that came out last year called Thanksgiving, and I'm like, oh, that's a fun novel.
Addams Family 2, that second movie, that's a good Thanksgiving movie.
It is. That counts as a Halloween movie though too. That's kind of what we did.
Yeah, that's fair. But they got the whole scene where they're like the pilgrims and they're barbecuing the teachers. Like, it's such a good one.
Right. They had the cornucopia and the whole spread, and they're just lighting everything on fire. That's great. I don't know which. I think I might like the first one better still, but the second one is just
that whole campground, like, that part of the movie is just sticks in my mind. Like, that whole experience of the campground is just really funny to me. Yeah, for sure. I have a lot of memories tied with camp and that kind of the books and that. I actually met my wife at camp too, so it's small little memories that you get from being in a place from year to year. It's kind of funny, like, not getting into it too much. She had gone to the same summer camp as I had growing up, and we knew of each other for a long time until we actually started leading kids. And we were like, hey, we should, hang out. And the rest is history. So it's kind of funny. She's been around my life forever. Yeah. She actually didn't even think my name was Power, which is hilarious. And I'll have to do most people don't, right? Most people probably, not familiar with you listening to this podcast are like, oh, that's a cool alias. It's like, no, that's his actual name.
Yeah, no. That is my actual God-given name. Well, my parents gave me the name, but it is my Christian name for sure. And my middle name is Christian, not to dox myself. But,
Get doxed.
Get absolutely doxed. But anyway, not to talk too much about me. There's some stuff that we, kind of started last pod that we hadn't quite finished or hadn't quite touched yet. You have some stuff in the odds and ends. We'll definitely talk about that. The big boy that I wanted to really get into is Silent Hill 2. And it's just called Silent Hill 2, but it is weird. Yeah. There is a lot to this game. A lot. And I mean it in terms of actual content, in terms of runtime. It is fascinating, the differences between the original and this remake, and kind of the process I've been digging into, like how they made it. So to start, people might think of this as a spoiler. I'm just going to say it's almost twice as long as the original. We'll start there, which is really interesting. But when you do that, you're adding stuff. I mean, genuinely. So, like, for instance, it's bigger in every way in comparison to the original. It's very similar to the original in terms of themes. I mean, it has basically the same story with different alterations for sure. But it feels like, hey, we played Silent Hill 2, and we have all this new technology to convey the story in a new way. So let's do that. And I think more of it succeeds than it doesn't, honestly. Before we get into like actually what it was for me playing it, what's your history with Silent Hill 2? You have finished the original, right?
Yeah, I've finished that original. Just one playthrough, but I really enjoyed that playthrough that I did of the original. Did it on emulator on my PC, but
emulator. Did you play the enhanced version though?
No, it was I think it was just that original PlayStation 2 version.
Original ROM. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
So
yeah, most people prefer that.
Yeah, I enjoyed that experience thoroughly. So it's hard for me to look at this remake and, be like, do I really need to play through this game again?
Yeah.
Because I got out of it what I wanted and I really liked it, but
and I can feel your trepidation in talking to you about it too, because it feels like a kind of unknown territory for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you have that background. You've played it originally. How long ago was that, actually, out of curiosity?
It would have been about probably around 2 years ago, I would say. About 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how long it took them to make this game, but they were definitely making it whenever you were playing it.
Yes, they were.
Time. So, yeah. So a little background of, kind of this game's development. It's interesting because the people that actually did it is Bloober Team. And if you know anything about Bloober Team, you know that they make really good games and then really bad or middling games. And it's like the Techland conversation I had in the crash course, like of the 5 games that have the juice. You get either good Techland or you get bad Techland, and each are different in their own way. Both are interesting in terms of what they want to do, but it's very similar to how a Bloober Team game comes out.
Did they do that Demon Souls remake?
No, they did not. That was Blue Point.
Oh, okay. Blue Point. I'm getting those mixed up in my head.
That is an interesting thing you bring up. Before I get into that point, Bloober Team, there's good or bad. You get like the goods like Observer, or you get the bad like the medium, where it is not delicate in terms of, theming. It doesn't handle its themes well, whereas Observer, it executes well on what it's trying to do. So there's that contrasting element. When you say Demon Souls, I find this super fascinating. I've actually been rolling around this in my head a lot this week after finishing it. This is something I want to kind of get into at some point. When it comes to remaking a game, and I don't want to get too deep into this topic, I just kind of want to introduce it. We can kind of lightly touch it. When it comes to remaking a game, what are you changing? What are you altering in the translation of it to a new system, to a new audience? So, for instance, you're seeing a lot of these old games be remade, a la Final Fantasy 1, 2, and now 3 they're going to make. And not to spoil Neon Genesis Evangelion, but they have that old show, right?
Yeah.
The old show is the old show. But then they did the rebuilds, right?
Both are really good.
Right. Both are excellent, but they're different things, kind of based on the same germ of an idea. I love the rebuilds. I think I prefer the rebuilds, to be honest with you. Without the original, you don't have the rebuilds. It's different. It's very odd. Like, you can't have one without the other, but I
go back and forth with
the new version.
Rebuilds and with the originals. Like, some days I do prefer those rebuilds, some days I prefer those originals. But
I would say with the modernity of it, it is they're excellent takes on Evangelion and branching that story out past the, the end of it, even of
Yep.
the original storyline.
Yep.
But that's kind of what's happening with these new remakes with Demon Souls. What are we altering in the translation? Um, how is the art design changing? How is the level design changing? How do the enemies change? Because they're not just using old code base; they're actually doing some new stuff.
I don't think
Like
they
it
changed
feels
any code base for Demon
they
Souls.
didn't. That's the thing. But
Yeah.
like in terms of visuals, they're changing animations that time with the old attacks, for instance, in a Demon Souls.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff that there's some consternation about, like, hey, I don't like these changes in this game because it feels similar, but it looks different. Like we're losing a touch of art design
Yeah.
that From had implemented, for instance. And I think that can be argued with, all the new stuff, like with Silent Hill 2. People are going to have some issue with the choices they made. But I think in some ways, this remake makes things better that were subpar in the original because you're never going to beat someone's idea of a game. I understand. It's tough to get over what people expect out of a given title, especially when they hold something in such high esteem and high regard as they do the original Silent Hill 2. People, that game looms so large, not just over the fans of the series, but the actual series itself.
Yeah, it's the best in the series. Like it
It
hands
is the
down. Like,
best, and
it best represents the
yeah,
series too.
yeah, for sure. And there are themes that carry from game to game for sure, but Silent Hill 1, 3, 4 are not even the same games or even as lauded as 2.
Mm-hmm. The
And it's
third one
kind of
was
like,
pretty good though.
I hear the third one is good, and it does have some ties into 2. Like I said, like some themes, some stuff
Yeah.
carries over for sure. But it's interesting to see how large it looms in its own series. Kind of like the Final Fantasy 7, where it's like the most popular. It's kind of like its own set
Mm-hmm.
within its own franchise. And I find it interesting when they remake these things because they're the most popular in their franchises and they're getting remade. But when I bring up Evangelion, it's kind of the rebuild aspect of it, where they are changing things and altering things and making things different. And it's a polarizing idea, but I think it has helped in almost every case make these games better.
It makes it
Honestly,
more
I think,
accessible, and it makes
yeah,
them
for
more
sure,
modern for the modern
yeah,
audiences. Like they modern audiences just expect something completely different than those
right,
PlayStation 1 games, and PlayStation 2 games. Those
hmm
have some old design philosophies that just modern
yeah,
audiences aren't going to expect anymore, and so you kind of have to, right, if you want to reach out to a new audience, not just the people who played the original game. You gotta kind of remake these games to fit that modern. And I understand that as someone who's you know I'm mostly biased, I will say, towards the old thing. That's just how
hmm
I am. But I can at least understand that, like, yeah, you're gonna reach a wider audience if you're remaking things to be feel fresh, to feel modern. So
yeah. And I think the things that they change specifically in Silent Hill to remake, they don't call it that, of course, are really good. And I've gone back and I've watched multiple different versions of Silent Hill 2 be played. People don't prefer that like Silent Hill collection they put out with 2 and 3. So I went back and watched. She's actually like maybe the most preeminent Silent Hill 2 person, Boyd Bergen on YouTube. She's really good, but she loves Silent Hill 2. She has a non-spoiler walkthrough and then a spoiler walkthrough where the non-spoiler is just subtitles on screen, and then the spoiler is her talking over it, kind of like commentary wise, on Silent Hill 2. I find those two playthroughs fascinating, and I watched through most of it, so I could see the difference between the remake and that because I was kind of playing it concurrently. Um, but anyway, um, seeing these differences, understanding what makes it new versus the old, is really fascinating to me, and it's kind of been something I've been wrestling with in a kind of a thought provoking way ever since I finished it. Because honestly, I haven't stopped thinking about it since I finished it. I think it feels so ahead of its time in terms of when it was made, and the fact that it translates so well to the modern era is honestly baffling to me. That there aren't games that have as mature of themes as this one does, and that it stands the test of time as well as it does, even through a translation. It's just shocking to me how good um, it ended up being, because people did not think this game was going to be any good at all. Like, we were seeing them in multiple PlayStation showcases or whatever you call those things. They're direct style featurettes where you're seeing
play, right?
clips of this gameplay. Yeah, you're seeing stilted dialogue. You're like, what is going on here? Like, what are they doing? It looks like Bloober Team is at it again in a bad way, right? But contextually, you got to play it, and this was what I was saying to you last part.
Yeah,
you got to just touch it. You got to understand it. You got to play it. It's going for a different thing, and I think it's because it has to. So, one of the main differences in this game, in the original, there's this dreamy dialogue, right? Where everyone seems kind of like in their own head, kind of speaking distantly from each other. And people think that might be a choice. I personally chalk it up to it being poor voice acting. This might be a contentious topic. I don't know. There's no real good answer, honestly.
I like that original voice acting personally, but
sure, because it's the original, and that's totally fine. And that's what people understood and grew up with, right? And I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum, but they changed that in the new one. James does not seem like a distant character. He seems like a personal, grounded, realized version of this character, where, you're losing that dreamy quality, I think, where people are kind of like talking odd. It feels like a Twin Peaks dream or something, where I don't know if you've ever seen it, but people right, which is why I loved it, I think, because I love Twin Peaks. That's like my favorite show of all time. But I think they had to make this change specifically with the dialogue, so people don't go like, this is like the worst thing I've ever heard, right? Because like for a modern audience, this translating, I think it would not have done as well as it would if they maintain that. Because some of those line reads in the original, at least, even if you do like them, are very odd. Just the kind of flavor that everyone speaks through. So that's maybe one of the most major differences they do. They kind of make James more, I don't know, he feels like a therapist, honestly. Like, he feels like he's checking on how people are doing and not just like unfazed by it all. It's interesting. But in the actual gameplay of it, it is completely different. It's not the, isometric look. It's not the fixed camera angle, whatever you want to call it, from scene to scene. It is a behind the back, third person action horror game. And there is actually a lot of action in it. You're doing a fair amount of fighting, way more than you did in the original. Like, way more.
Yep. Gotta modernize it.
I mean, yeah, and that's, you like it or you hate it. At some point, I think it becomes a little much, especially because a lot of the game does feel padded just to feel longer. So if I were to get into my minor criticisms about it, because on the whole, I love it. But to get into my minor criticisms, I think it is far too long. I think 4 to 5 hours could easily be shaved off this game, where you are in, you're in this hospital, you're in this apartment complex for multiple hours doing these puzzles, kind of backtracking back and forth, following this labyrinthine from end to end. And I think it could have been edited down. It could have been cut down. I think they went a little too broad with it in the playing of it. Right. But I think it allows all this space, all the structure that they have allowed for, brings a different characterization of these characters to life. I think every character is far better realized than they are in the original, having seen the two back and forth. I think the most realized character is Angela, who's the first person you meet. And she might have the best portion of the game with the abstract daddy boss fight. And it becomes an entire set piece, where in the original, it's kind of just like an arena where you're just kind of blocking him or hitting him with a, shotgun shell from across the room, whatever, It's like a full-on set piece. You're like running from hallway to hallway. It's it's amazing. It's probably the best part of that game, honestly. But, given all the space to run around, they flex their muscles, and I think they do it well. This game, I am not scared by much. This game scared me to death half the time. And it's not because of what you're encountering, the themes of it, which are all, scary in their own right. it's how dark this game gets. And I mean that literally. You have a crappy flashlight that you're kind of like trying to gain ground, looking around, at your surroundings. But there is a lot of times in this game where you are and your light just stops out of the way. And there's just like this endless void of darkness past your field of view. And it is some of the most harrowing stuff I've experienced in a video. And I have a very iron belly for that stuff. Like a huge tolerance for that. And honestly, whenever I was attacked by creatures, it was like a respite from that. Like the tenseness and the tension was just overwhelming at a point. I felt like I was being oppressed. I felt like I was, it felt like I was in purgatory, honestly. So whenever I got to fight something, I was like, oh my God, thank God, there's that release, there's that calm down.
Yeah. And so maybe maybe that does detract a little bit from it. It could, too many. It
could. Yeah, it depends on your taste for it, really. I dug it extremely because it takes a lot for me to get scared these days.
Yeah.
And I think beginning to end, in some aspects it is bloated for sure, but all the iconic scenes you think about from Silent Hill 2 original are expounded upon and done, I think, even better than the original. Yeah. I think it lives alongside the original Silent Hill 2. And in some ways, it might be, I don't want to, grok any theories about this really. It might be a continuation of Silent Hill 2 where you are running this constant loop almost. It feels like that. Where they don't outright say this, but you look around in portions of the game and there are corpses of James everywhere. So, or things that look like James. And you're like, he's wearing the same jacket I am. I can't really tell because I'm in a freezer right now and he's frozen, but that looks like a green jacket. So they allude to it from time to time.
Yeah, and it could just be, because a lot of Silent Hill 2, I guess spoilers, a lot of it is
definitely spoilers. So.
James's, dreams and imagination, it's his like psychology going out of control. He's getting a bit schizophrenic, psychotic due to his guilt for everything that happens in the game, story wise, and so or before the game, I should say, but
for sure. But dealing with that trauma anyway, that's definitely what we're focusing on. Yeah.
And so it, the corpses of himself, could just be, just part of that, schizophrenia and.
Yeah, it's not clear. It's not stated, obviously. It's honestly not even the point. I just find it interesting in terms of like an aesthetic choice that they made to go like, let's make these players think like, is this kind of a loop, endless loop? And some of the endings kind of feed into it. But the thing I find so fascinating about Silent Hill, so this is my first Silent Hill. Hand up, I've never played any of them besides the original 2 in spurts and then watching the walkthroughs. So this is really my first stab at it. And honestly, I think, I didn't quite know what like, I need to at some point. I didn't know what the deal with Silent Hill was. Like, why do people like this?
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's a different, it's like existential horror.
Yes. It's real horror.
Yeah. And it feels, because the scariest things are stuff that can really happen.
Yeah.
And it's manifestations of actual real life problems, and it feels like every character is tackling with their own version of hell, or they're dealing with their own deliverance or penance, and none of that is more, apparent than with the character of Eddie. So they make some changes from like where you meet him. In the original, you meet him at a bowling, and this one you meet him in a movie theater, and in the original he's eating a pizza, and in the new one he's eating ice cream with his hands. So it's interesting to see the differences there, but they kind of like take each character and they go like, hey, there's this thing about them that you're seeing visually in the world. Like for instance, Eddie, always when he talks, there's like this kind of puff of cold, of like hot breath coming, like he's in a freezer. And that's like a little thing about his character that you notice. You're like, why is it only cold with this character? Why is this something that's standing out when James seems totally normal and he's not breathing, and he doesn't look like he's doing the same thing. We're in a cold room. And I think it's because everybody has their own version of Silent Hill they're walking through for each character. And it's
Yeah.
just fascinating to see like what they changed with this like visual upgrade to go like, hey, we can show breath now. We should say like, hey, this is his representation of Silent Hill to him. He feels like he's in a freezer all the
Yeah.
time. And what does this version of this theater look like to him when James is seeing some other thing, right? There's the little girl Laura. She's running around, Silent Hill with all these monsters around, and James is like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, there's things crawling around," but she doesn't see that because she has no sin, she has no issue, so she's innocent, kind of walking around, but she still has this guilt in her life. So her version of Silent Hill is chasing endlessly, like after her mother, for instance, right? But since she's without blame, there's no guilt chasing her for that, like an actual manifestation for James, like a bubblehead nurse or something.
Yeah.
I just think it's fascinating. It's maybe the coolest part about the game is everyone has their own personal hell and it's reflected on screen differently.
Yeah, and
You
I
know.
think going into like the deeper themes behind the game,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is like a deeper theme of the game is like not
Right.
just the characters, but like I really do think that the artist's intent is that everyone has their own Silent Hill at times that they have to get through, like bad
Right.
headspace, and tough times, and
Mm-hmm.
that's just kind of like the type of experience it is, right? The fog in your mind, and it's
Yeah.
it's just really it's a really awesome experience. Any Silent Hill that you can pick up and play, especially those first three games, like
Uh-huh.
they're just great in showcasing that sort of nightmarish world that we can all
Right.
find ourselves in at times, and so I
Yeah.
think that is like the artistic intent that the developer had in mind, for those games. When I play those, at least that's kind of how I feel that they're trying to show is like, yeah, you can get through these, and there is a end to the Silent Hill.
Yeah, and everyone's personal hell is reflected differently, and
Yeah.
depending on their transgressions, like they're kind of having to sort through it. But it's not clear how they get there. It's not clear what they're trying to do. It feels like they're just going through torture almost for every different character. May it be physical torture, may it be emotional torture, mental torture. It's different for everybody. Um, to see it reflected in multiple ways in this game, I think it's a feat of technical prowess. Honestly, I think Bloober really knocks it out of the park with facial capture, with virtual performance specifically. I think
Sure.
the performance, and I said this to you, of James Sunderland is maybe the best I've seen in the video game. It's really close. Like, I think it is fantastic
He's just a
work.
really awesome protagonist. Like he's hard to do
Yeah.
wrong, even in that original Silent Hill. Like you
Hmm.
were always felt like you were in his shoes and like in his head, and
Yeah.
like it's that type of.
Hmm.
I was talking about that in like the VN podcast, like being able to get into the protagonist's head and like really understand what's going on. VNs do
Hmm.
that really well, but
Yeah.
that Silent Hill 2 that I played at least was also really good at that. From what you're saying, it sounds like this Silent Hill is also really good at getting you inside of James' head and connecting you
Yeah.
with him, making you putting you in his shoes. Essentially, is transporting you into the world of Silent Hill 2. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's, and wrapping it up a little bit, I think that is maybe the greatest feat of this game is in the translation, not losing the message, because that can be something that, can be muddied if you don't do it well. And in the making of this game, they had not carte blanche, but the original creators wanted them to do different things and to say like, hey, you can change what you want, like within reason. We need to be some sort of oversight for it, but feel free to kind of pitch us on new stuff for this game. But Bloober Team kind of resisted that notion, going, it's going to fall on our shoulders if we mess this up. So we want to make this as faithful as possible while improving the things that aren't perfect about Silent Hill 2, because it's not perfect. It wasn't even reviewed well when it came out necessarily. It's kind of been, improved upon in terms of favor with the passage of time and people playing it and marinating on it and coming back to it. So you have all this time in between the original game in '01 and now in 2024.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of time to marinate on an idea, right? And changing that really would poison people on the whole idea of remaking.
Yeah, I would
So,
say like the Silent Hill series in general are like a really good showcase of games as art rather than games
mhm.
for
Oh, for
gameplay
sure.
sake.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
gameplay in them, it's kind of just, worse Resident Evil, right? Like,
I mean, yeah, if you want to get specific, there is more bad Silent Hill than there is good.
yeah,
So people have been kind of clamoring for a while to even get a good one, let alone
yeah.
remake of Silent Hill 2. So, you
But
know,
the
I agree.
the themes behind it and the world building
Hmm.
and the use of just atmosphere is so
Right.
heavy in those
Oh
Silent Hill
man.
games. And you were
Yeah.
talking about the use of darkness earlier. I kind of
Hmm.
want to go a little bit on a side tangent here. So you're thinking that
Please.
they have a really good use of darkness in this Silent Hill 2 remake. What about their usage of fog? Do you think they use fog at all? Because that was kind
They
of like,
do.
okay, that was like the selling
Yeah.
point of like the first two games was that they have heavy usages of fog to like
Yeah.
really encase you into the world and make you feel a little bit claustrophobic, maybe. So
So it's a little bit of that for sure, but it's also technical limitations that they had to do this. I mean, draw distances weren't how they are now.
right,
You know, you could only generate so much on screen at once with hardware.
yeah,
So they kind of used it as a storytelling device as well as a technical kind of like we're gonna hide some stuff behind this curtain, this veil.
I
I
mean
mean, you're
it's a
looking at Silent
masterful
Hill
way to
One.
do it, though, right?
It is, yeah. In Silent Hill One, like the fog is pretty right in front of you, like it's right
Yeah,
there. And Silent Hill 2, you see it in the distance for sure. And I think, yeah, they do use it well, and they use it pretty immediately. Once you get off of Toluca Lake and you get into the town of Silent Hill, after kind of a long trek there, honestly, it's like twice as long as the original where when he's running through the woods. Um, yeah, that fog immediately kind of envelops the town, and you go like, okay, I have this map. I'm gonna have to kind of just follow this map and hope I end up where I need to end up because I can't see a thing 20 yards in front of me, right? Um, and it adds that like, and I'll kind of get into a personal experience here in a second too, because I find this so kind of calming, just like the dreariness of it all, right? Just it feels like it just rained or something, and there's like fog out. It was kind of this perfect like storm, if you will, where I'm playing this game on a Monday, and I just got off of work. It's nice and dreary. It had been raining all day long, and I'd been playing it off and on at lunch after or while I was at work, and then coming back and getting off for the day and going like, wow, this is just there's something about this, man. This is like atmosphere I've been kind of in all day that I really am into. You know, I was listening to Akira and Yamaoka in the rain a little bit. I was like, this is a vibe. This is a definite vibe. So I think they really nailed that atmosphere that you're looking for sure,
yeah,
and it carries on throughout the game. I think that is maybe its strongest, you know, point when it comes to visuals. I think the atmosphere is just absolutely perfect. They nail that portion.
yeah.
Um, it feels so confident in its ability to make you feel a certain way when you go into a certain place, um, in a building and then back out of it. You're just like you feel that transitional atmosphere change around you, and I really love that. The standout portion of the atmosphere is the sound design, man. Like it is just wet and crunchy and dripping at every turn. It is some of the best sound design since I've heard or since I played Dead Space. Like you really feel you feel like everything is around you, kind of like freaking, hissing, moaning at you, and it's phenomenal work. It really is. It shocked me how well Bloober pulled it off, really, because in some way, people could think of this as a paint by numbers movie, but they changed so much about it in good ways. But they also deliver on what makes Silent Hill 2 great.
Yeah.
It's that atmosphere. It's the dreamlike feeling of being in a place where you have no direction, and driving a character that is ridden with guilt. And I feel like everything kind of meshes together into this wonderful consomme of kind of delicious atmosphere. I loved every second of walking through this game, even though it did feel long. I think, especially at the end, not getting into spoilers, really, especially at the end where James knew what he did, right? At the end, he knew what happened, and he was forced to kind of engage with it in a physical way in Silent Hill. Um, I feel like at the end it kind of drops the ball on how it's represented to you with a boss fight, but after that, when you actually finish the game with the different endings along the way, I think the ideas really gelled back together. Like in the boss fight, I didn't feel like it was executed very well, but like when you get to the very end of whatever route you've chosen, it really comes together beautifully. I think I just got the regular leave ending. I think there's like 8 endings to this thing,
Yeah,
including like the famous like including the famous like dog one where he's like in the control room, which isn't really a spoiler. It's one of those joke endings.
Yeah.
But there's to really finish it. There are different things you kind of have to do to achieve an ending. Like for instance, you need to be around Maria a certain amount of time to trigger this part of the ending, or you need to go check back on her when she's resting and spell for this part of the ending. It's very interesting. Like they're doing things mechanically in the game to ensure that you're getting a different ending, or you checked on this path instead of going here while you were playing. You didn't even know you were doing it necessarily. It's fascinating stuff, and I think it really wraps up super well.
Yeah. I think that'd be
But yeah,
a fun topic at some point. Just like dreamlike games, like that's an interesting like subgenre of games, because like I can think of just a couple off the top of my head, that I'm always down to discuss a little bit of. Like Yume Nikki is like a RPG maker game that's got that sort of like dreamlike atmosphere to it. It's one of those it's I guess a little bit the first of its kind for RPG maker games, but it's called a walking simulator. So all the gameplay is just like walking around, exploring the world, taking in the the sort of chip art, whatever that's called, the pixel art. And
pixel art,
it's a really fantastic experience. I used to be obsessed with that thing when I was a young teenager, but
dreamlike games for sure. That would be something we definitely should probably.
Yeah, things like LSD Dream Emulator, that's a great one to talk about as well. Stuff like that is PS1 is really good for that because of that draw distance limitation. They do a really good job with that. And I also for the N64, I'd throw Majora's Mask in there as well as like one of those dreamlike games, because that
for sure,
that game is really like embodies that dreamlike stuff. That theme is a really like a theme I have a big passion for. So and that one I was telling you about, what was the one that I sent you? It's Iblard. I want to talk about that sometime.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that surrealist sort of PS1 adventure game. That was like Japan only, but it recently got a fan translation. I played through it once. I really enjoyed it, but it's short enough to where I'd definitely play through it again for the podcast. But it's a really good experience.
That's a topic I want you to get on at some point in the crash course. Is those PS1 games? Though that's maybe your most outfitted bag. I kind of want to see you swing the club,
Yeah.
So, but yeah. In summation, Silent Hill 2 is a must play. It is a must play video game. I think it's not, don't buy a console for it or anything, but it's if you have a PS5,
you need to necessarily. If you have like a PC that's got decent specs, you should be able to run it.
If you have a PS5 or PC, you need to play this game.
Yeah.
It is not a game for children. It is a game for adults with adult themes. I think that is, in our discussion, you can probably picked up. Highly recommended, and know you need to play it.
I'll get around to it hopefully before end of year. So
I've been bugging you about it like all week. Anyway, so in terms of that PS1 stuff, there's a couple things I touched too. I kind of wanted I didn't know if you've encountered these games, known about them any. I touched a game today, a little bit, called Fear the Spotlight. Have you ever heard of this game?
Yeah, it's on my radar. I definitely need to check it out. It's got that PS1 survival horror sort of vibe to it. So
Yeah, it's like your total. It's your total back for
Yeah.
sure. I think you would love that game. I like I said, we played literally only played like 5 minutes of it today. I was having to peel back, go back to work. But I was like, man, this game is. I can tell this is already going to be good. It's like it controls well though. It's not jank at all,
Yeah.
but it has that nice. It's got the swimming vertices of the PS1. It feels like a harkening back to that era of games, and it's
Yeah,
a
kind of
horror
like
game too.
Signalis. I think we talked
Yeah,
about
totally.
a little bit about
Yeah,
Signalis
very
on the Halloween
Signalis.
podcast, but really love
Mm-hmm.
that one.
Yeah,
So
it's very Signalis coded. It's not isometric. It is behind the back. You
right.
play as a female character.
Yeah.
I think you're like kind of walking around a school trying to. I think you're trying to do a séance or something, or failing a séance, something like this. I really don't know much about it. I kind of bought it sight unseen, but I've heard so much good stuff about it. I think you would like that. And then, once I finish more of that, it's like 3 hours long. I'll probably finish it this weekend. We can actually talk about it. But
Yeah, I need to
you
check
should
that.
play that. I think it seems, at first glance, it seems excellent. You should play.
Okay.
The other one is Crow Country, which I talked about last pod too. Also, your game, 100%. Like it might be even more of your game than Fear the Spotlight is.
All I've heard is the name
I played
of this
about,
one, but I know it has something to do with like PS1 or
Mhm. It feels like it feels like a Resident Evil game, but in like the Final Fantasy VII engine. It feels like an N64 type or PS1 type game, but it's definitely not. I mean, it's technically
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been able to play on one of those things. But I played a couple more hours of that. Not to get too far into it. I think it's really, really good. It's not scary. It's got a nice creepy vibe to it, though. You're in an abandoned theme park, like I said. But those two games specifically, I wanted to highlight because that is your thing for sure. I think you would enjoy both of those games, and I don't think either of them is that long.
yeah.
I don't know when or if I'll finish Crow Country. I want to attempt to. I got a lot of other games I want to touch before Game of the Year in January, which is what I might do. But yeah, I wanted to highlight those for you just to kind of put them on your radar. And then the
Yeah.
last thing for new games. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Wait, yeah. While we're in this topic, I did want to interject. I just remembered one that I played. I think within like the past month, that was pretty.
Oh, yes, please.
Interesting. It's
Mhm.
a brand new indie title called Mouthwashing.
Yes, I was
Yeah.
going to buy this today.
I
Tell me about
played
this
through
game,
it,
please.
so yeah, it's that those same sort of vibes, but Mouthwashing is more of a narrative game than a game. Like there are puzzles and there are set things you can do, and I think there's multiple endings. I only got one of the endings, but I'm pretty sure there's multiple endings. I would need like to go through with a guide to do that, but for what I did play of it, took me a little over 2 hours to get through. And
Yeah, I didn't hear it was that long. Yeah.
yeah, it's not that long, but it's a really cool experience. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's the same developer as the Milk game. Oh gosh,
Milk game.
Yeah, there's another one that has like a weird name that's more of a pixel art game, but anyways, Bag of Milk or something like that.
Okay.
Bag of Milk inside a bag of
I'm not
milk,
familiar.
I think is what it was called. But
Okay.
anyways, it might be that same developer. I'm not sure, but anyways, it is at least similar vibes because I played that one a while back too. But Mouthwashing is it's a cool little adventure sort of game.
Yeah, it
first
looks
person
fantastic.
adventure.
Yeah.
So I liked it. It has some really like get you moments, some jump scares in there, some creepy moments. I didn't get too creeped out because it but there were definitely times where it's like, oh, this is good, this is spooky. So they did really good things with the atmosphere and the narrative, and they sort of have that bit of like confusion in the narrative to where they jump around in the timeline a little bit, so sometimes you get a little bit lost in like where you are in the timeline of the narrative, and so that can produce some anxiety, some stress. So overall it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's like Pulp Fiction that way, where
Yeah.
it's kind of hopping around, but you still get the kind of gist of the story at the end.
Yep, and by
for
the
sure.
end of it, you're completely unnerved, and you're like, holy crap, what did I just play? That had nothing to do with mouthwash. So
yeah, this game is cheap too. I think it's on sale for like it's like $11, but the game itself is like 12. So
Yeah.
maybe just buy it anyway, no matter even if it is full price.
yeah,
It seems
it was a good
excellent
experience though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only on PC. I haven't got it yet, but I definitely will try that. It looks great. That main character wrapped in bandages really sells you.
So I guess we're still stuck a little bit
is.
in the Halloween stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked, it was like the 30th or something. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely we're just kind of finishing up that creepy little block there. But in terms of me finishing new stuff, I finished 2 games this week. The second one is a lot shorter, a lot more brisk. But I'm more mixed on it. It's called Pepper Grinder. Have you heard of this game? Pepper
No, I'm
Grinder?
not familiar with this one.
Okay, it is a Devolver published game.
Okay.
Made by one guy. The game company is called REC, AHRECH, I think. REC. It's
Okay.
one guy. It got ported and published by different people. I think it was developed for the PC. But anyway, it came out on Switch and PC initially this year, and then on PS4 and Xbox and all that stuff later. Anyway, it is basically a pixel art side-scrolling platformer for the most part, but the hook is you drive a drill that kind of drills through the world, and you can kind of shoot up as you leave like mounds of dirt for the most part. It feels like you're the Underminer from The Incredibles or something like that.
Yeah.
You just kind of like.
You got me thinking of those like old Flash games, like the Motherload.
Yeah,
and
like
Super
Line
Motherload.
Rider. Yeah. It's very similar to that. It feels very kinetic that way. There's a lot of like platforming and time trials, these sort of things, and it's very, very quick, very, very easy game. Until it's not, and this is my main issue with it, is that, and I think this is intentional, where the game is like 3 or 4 hours to actually beat. There's only, 4 worlds. I think there's like 5 levels in each, so it's like very doable to finish in a day, even a weekend. And I just, it's so easy until you get to a boss fight, and then it feels like they crank the difficulty up in a way to keep you from progressing, to make their game longer. And I hate that in games. It feels intentional that they go like, hey, you made it to our boss. This game is a certain length. We're going to make it hard for no reason.
Yeah.
And like there's the final boss has multiple forms when you don't have a lot of life to take with you, or to even, heal up, basically. So I think that's my main issue with it, is that when it spikes, it really spikes, and I did not find it fun or engaging that way. There are some things you can do to mitigate difficulty where there's a lot happening at a quick pace. So you can kind of kick down the game speed to make it so you're kind of in slow motion, as fast or slow as you want. You can kick it down by like 0.5 every time until you're like, oh, I'm at 1.0. You can kick it down to 0.75, and it makes it a little slower so you can react quicker to what's throwing it to you on screen. Because once you get to the final boss fight, it's just blistering, and you're just like, I've done this first form. I don't really want to do this again. I'm just going to kick it down a couple notches so I can actually see what's happening. I think the sprite work is fantastic, especially on the bosses. But, it feels like a first game sort of way. It's very fun. That mechanic is really good. I would like to see it implemented stuff for sure. Yeah, that's something I would want to talk about too, is tiny mechanics in games I would want to see broken out into bigger projects, So I'd like to see what this guy's second game would be, like I said, finished it in 3 to 4 hours. Wasn't very long, very easy until it wasn't. But yeah, I liked it okay. It was Pepper Grinder. It's a fun time. If you have some time set aside on a day or a weekend, I suggest you look at it. Don't get it full price. It's a little pricey for what their runtime is. It's like $15 for a 3 or 4 hour game. I don't know if the price tag is worth it necessarily, but support indie developers for sure. I mean, Devolver's not fully indie, really. They kind of are. They're a publisher, but
yeah, the developers are indie at least.
The developer definitely is. He got it published by Devolver, but
yeah.
Anyway, I enjoyed it for the most part. So out of the 2, I prefer Silent Hill 2. Of course, it's not. You can't really compare the 2. But yeah, that's all I had for new stuff for sure. Any other new bits besides mouthwashing for you?
Yeah, no, I can't think of anything crazy that I've been playing of like new stuff. So
Okay. So yeah, let's just dive into odds and ends. You have been playing some, what is it, heavily modded Hatsune Miku Project Diva X? Can you tell me what's
yes,
going on there?
so I've got about 2,000 extra songs that I've got installed on this thing. Like my install of Hatsune Miku Project Diva Mega Mix Plus, that's the full title, on my PC is it takes up a good portion of my hard drive. It's I've got a lot installed for adding extra songs, and so I've been playing the series since the original PSP. So I've been a long time fan of the series. I've played pretty much every mainline entry in the series, and so it's just like my go-to for a rhythm game that I just, when I don't have anything else going on, I just update my mods and add a couple more mods if I see some more interesting mods, and then I have just ended up with this huge collection of songs that I can just take a crack at. And I mean, I'm not the greatest at the game. Like I can take on extreme charts at around the 8-star difficulty pretty consistently, and just sight reading them. And 10 stars is the max difficulties, so I'm not quite there, but I'm making my way there. I'm pretty close. It takes a lot of time to get good at rhythm games in general, especially Project Diva being some would consider it like a 6-button, so it is a lot to keep track of. So
yeah, I've tried to play some rhythm games akin to this, and just my brain goes like boo, and I just can't. I just have to be. Yeah, I just have to be like, I have to be locked in, and it has to be a certain flavor rhythm game for me. So I guess, how is this presented? Like, is it like Persona Dancing All Night, where it's like the radial, like you're kind of like dancing in the middle, and there's like notes coming from every direction, or is this like a note highway? What is this?
The notes are everywhere on the screen. There's not one place for the notes. They just put the notes wherever on the screen they want to. You just have to react.
No, thank you.
It's a lot like Osu in that regard, but instead of clicking, you press the right buttons on your controller. Now, I'm using I'll just show the controller. Actually, I got it right here. This is a
oh boy,
the not sponsored 8-bit controller. It's got the like Hall effect joysticks. This is the Ultimate 2.4G controller, so
it looks awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice. I own 2 of these actually because I absolutely love them. They're my favorite controller of all time. But the funny thing is, for Project Diva specifically, I still have the actual button prompts for the notes on the PlayStation controls, because I've been playing since the PSP. That's ingrained into me, having to look for those buttons, and so
those symbols. Yeah,
I'm not even looking at my controller when I'm playing these. I have to be eyes glued to the screen to keep up with the notes everywhere, and so the layout of the controller doesn't really matter as long as I have those correct prompts on the screen. I can make do. So
yeah, that sounds too hectic for an old man like me. I could never.
That's how I am with multiplayer shooters. Like I'm too old for those. I know how to do. I can do rhythm games. I can do Souls games, and that's about it.
Yeah. It's just that sort of high reactionary life of video games just passed me by. I don't even play competitive anything really these days. No. I mean, Fortnite, but that doesn't even really count. That's not that competitive. No. Anyway. But yeah, you were playing that for sure, and then you said Shadow Tower on Halloween.
Yeah.
Shadow.
So I've got it on my PS1 back there.
Mm.
And that's Shadow Tower is another line of first-person dungeon crawlers from FromSoft, and it goes the route of horror in its themes more so than any other of like the games before Bloodborne. So the systems are similar but different to Kingsfield. I'm not sure how I feel about it right now because I'm still trying to learn those systems. They're very very like weird to pick up on. The RPG system
esoteric,
at least doesn't. Yeah, very esoteric compared to the RPG system in Kingsfield. That's a lot more automatic. Shadow Tower's a lot more like, oh yeah, we'll let you pick out what stats you want. We're not really going to tell you what those stats do, and I don't have the original instruction booklet, so I might have to look up a guide. But
yeah, you might have to.
But so I gave it about 2 or 3 hours, and then I put it down to do other things. But it was interesting what I played of it, and I definitely want to delve more into that game because I do own like the original version of that game, so that's kind of like my motivation to play through that game.
Right.
But
yeah, a game too esoteric for Noah, is that even possible?
Yeah, it might be. It's really I don't understand where it's wanting me to go, what it's wanting me to do. It's one of those to where all I know is to descend the Shadow Tower. That's about
so frustrating. All I know. Yeah, I mean, I understand like games are different back then for sure, but what are you trying to communicate to the player? Like if you suck at dialogue with your own player base, I think that can be just avoided, even in old games. Like you can't just make things; you have to make it be understood. Well, and I think a lot of old games have that issue.
Those older games also had a lot of memory limitations, and they didn't want to. Yeah. They didn't want to get bogged down on showing the game how it's played and things like that, because they figured we'll put that in the instruction manual.
Right. And, yeah. I mean, honestly, the instructional manual was like totally different than what we even got recently.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. So Shadow Tower, interesting. It's been a while since I played a game that's completely like confounded me like that. That's very frustrating though.
I'm just gonna have to go in with some sort of guide or something to get any sort of. I tried to play it blind, but it just was not clicking with me. I thought I've played enough Kingsfield, maybe I can pick this up, but the systems are just not the same. Despite the I mean, the combat style is still there. You can still strafe around the enemies, and you can still you still have that sort of stamina bar for your attacks, and so you're still you can like go in and go out. There's actually dedicated like shield button though, and you have like dedicated shields, and they play around a lot with weapon durability. It actually kind of reminded me of like the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom a little bit, with like how easily weapons break in this game. Like you're constantly having to switch weapons because your weapons are constantly breaking. So
I think, not to get too in the weeds, I think that mechanic in Zelda sucks so bad.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of
those games.
Heavy weapon durability like that. Like realistic weapon durability, sure, but heavy weapon durability that's heavily punishing, like it. Yeah.
Even in like RPGs, like Bethesda RPGs, I just hate durability in games. Like I just think it's lame because you're playing in a space that has no limits, so why limit me, right? It's like having a stamina bar in some games too. It can be argued whether it's good or not, or whether you like it or not, but like there are different things people allow. Like stamina bars are kind of everywhere. They're in FromSoft, they're in
They have to be in every
it's kind of a normal
open world now, right? You have to have the stamina bar, and you have to have the free roaming climbing after Breath of the Wild, So
yeah, for sure. It's like in Alan Wake, the original, you run so hard that he has to stop and catch his breath. Like they like made it a thematic choice in their game to do that. When I'm just like, this is a video game. He doesn't have real stamina, so you could just make it fake, whatever. But it's fine. I just think I just think if you're going to make things realistic, it needs to be more fun or make more sense. Like durability in games are just not my thing. Not my thing at all. But yeah, last thing for odds and ends for you, Dead by Daylight, I guess. What?
Yeah.
Why should I play Dead by Daylight, Noah? I know you played a lot of it. Why should I play it?
I've played a lot of it. Let me
Don't act so happy.
let me give the actual play time here. Let me see if Steam will pull up for me.
I don't even know if I want to know this.
Well, that's too bad because I'm gonna pull it up. All right.
Oh,
We've got. Oh, this is good. I'm almost there, Power. No. I have 990 hours in this game.
Oh, well, you might as well just sit in the lobby for 10 hours and do nothing and not play that game.
Yeah. I'm almost there at that.
That is so much time.
Mark. Yeah.
That's so much time to put into a video game. The closest game, well, the game I put the most time into is Destiny 2. I put about 600, 700 hours of Destiny 2 over like almost 10 years.
Yeah.
So, why is it a good game? Is it actually a good game, or do you just like playing?
It's an arcade survival horror is like the best way to describe it. Like you get into a lobby, if you're a survivor, you gotta run around, repair generators, and dodge the killer. Essentially, if you're a killer, you gotta down the survivors and put them on a meat hook 3 times, and each survivor. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of back and forth in the gameplay, and it's kind of like one of those, like, you know what to expect once you've played it enough times. And so, like starting out, like, I was completely grossed out by, like, some of the things in the game, like some of the, like, gore and, you know, horror aspects. But after, like, so many hours in the game, you just kind of get desensitized to it and it just becomes, like, a gameplay mechanic to you rather than, like, a horror mechanic, so...
Is it graphic at all, or is it just kind of like the act of doing it grosses you out?
Yeah, the act of doing it. I mean, there's certain like kills that like the killers can do that get fairly graphic. Like they're pulling people apart and like, you know, showing their like insides, you know, pretty good. So yeah, it gets pretty good. Oh, I think your audio cut out completely. Uh-oh. Well, I'm gonna probably have to pause the recording here. Oh, I think you're back.
Okay, am I back?
Yeah.
I don't know why that would have done anything. I just was adjusting my headset. Okay, weird. All right. Yeah, we'll have to make a note maybe where we're at.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Okay. But yeah, Dead by Daylight. Kind of had a technical snafu on my end. My bad. Yeah, in terms of my odds and ends, I don't have a lot going. I feel like I'm doing a lot of Game of the Year prep in terms of like what I want to be talking about in January. I think that's what we decided on is we're going to kind of make an extravaganza at the end of January for one of our main pods and go like, maybe we'll make up some categories. We'll definitely have our lists for games we like actually played through or touched this past year. And yeah, I don't know. I guess we can really like drill down on that when we get closer. But I guess what's a couple like categories you'd want to probably put into a Game of the Year?
I mean, the gaming market nowadays, you know, that's kind of synonymous with a lot of, you know, remakes and remasters, you know. So probably talk about some of those. I think it's safe to sort of categorize those together. We all understand that those are different things, but also like they're both sort of expounding on the same ideas as older games, and so I think that's a safe category to have of like when we're talking about games. And then there's the new ideas, you know, like what, you know, either, you know, new franchise completely or just like a new take on a franchise, you know, a new edition of a franchise, you know, a numbered game or whatever.
I think it'll be subjective for sure. Like what are the games we're going to consider for a game, you know? And I don't know if we'd have a united Game of the Year like that. It'd be my list and your list for whatever. And then, you know, if we happen to both say metaphors, yeah, great. Maybe it'll shake out like that. Maybe it won't. But it's not going to be like a consensus top one or anything, probably. So, but yeah, I guess what are some so from the stuff that you've seen throughout the year? Is there anything you want to touch specifically before we get to that point?
Yeah, I think I wrote it down a little bit, but it's honestly, I really liked that Shadow Generations DLC, right, for Sonic
Yeah,
Generations. I really
that's a
enjoyed
new
that.
game. That's a
Yeah,
new game. Yeah,
it is a new game, but it's also DLC. It's not
it
very
is.
long,
Yeah,
so it's a very condensed experience. I like I said, it
right.
took me an evening to get through that, but I really enjoyed that. Like, there's so
Hmm.
much nostalgia packed in there of those moments with Shadow, that are just like ingrained in me, and
Hmm.
they just harken back to those and they expound upon those in ways that feels like they really understand what made Shadow work as a character, what made him tick, and what
Hmm.
why we care about this, really just dark and brooding hedgehog. Like, it sounds silly, but like he. It's really cool what they did with it. Honestly, it's really cool. The smile was on my face pretty much the whole time I was playing through that. Like, I was
Yeah,
in my
like I
zone.
said, I bought that game. I bought that game, and I need to actually play that because it's not very long from the sounds of it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. What else do you think?
Um, I played through quite a bit of so old Dreamcast rail shooter. That was kind of
Hmm.
like, you could call it kind of a competitor to Star Fox, maybe, but
Okay.
not really on that same quality level, to be honest. But it's still fun.
On
It's a
rails, though. Yeah.
yeah, it's a from a long running shmup series. So before that, they went on rails with 3D. Moved to the Dreamcast. They were on like the Saturn and the, I think, even maybe the Genesis with the Cotton series. But Rainbow Cotton was on the Dreamcast, and they recently did a remaster of that for PC on Steam,
Oh, okay.
and that was this year, and
Hmm.
it was one of the ones I was looking forward to because I really liked that Dreamcast era of gaming, and so I got to experience that because I don't own a Dreamcast, but
Hmm.
the it was really fun. It was really fun, and
Rainbow Cotton. Okay.
yeah, it's got like the sort of like this campy anime sort of intro, like 90s anime, and then it's got like just like a whole like cute, it's a cute 'em up is what the genre is
Oh,
called. Yeah.
nice.
Yep. And so that whole sort of cute 'em up genre is pretty entertaining, but this was
I
sort of
like
like,
that. Shoot 'em up.
yeah, this sort of iteration is a little bit different than most cute 'em ups because most of them are those sort of like top down, or they're the sort of like side scrolling shooter where you're like a little spaceship, but or just like a little magical girl or something. But in
Yeah.
this case, you're a magical girl on a broomstick in a sort of 3D on rails, kind of like Sin and Punishment, Star Fox. Which, Sin and Punishment, that's a good,
That is a good
awesome
game.
game.
That is a good
Yeah,
game. Yeah.
really kind of tough, but it's a good one.
Yeah. We'll actually get into some NSO talk here very soon because yeah, we were I have a topic based upon that, but yeah, that's where I played it too.
Yeah, yeah. You're talking about, yeah, the NSO, yeah, the Sin and Punishment.
Yeah,
Oh
the
yeah,
NSO stuff,
yep,
the N64. Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that was a cool experience. I didn't quite beat it because it was even a little bit too hard for me. I got to like the final level, and then I'd played what I wanted to play of it, and I got like
Hmm.
to like some sort of like mid boss, I think, in that final level, and just was like, yeah, okay, I because it's that sort of philosophy where if you game over, you have to start all the way back, and so I was like,
Mm.
I played enough of it, what I wanted to play of it. I don't know if I'd want to go through that whole thing. It's not very long. Like, it took me one evening to get
Yeah.
there, but I
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to go through all that right now. But it's something I'll return to when I feel like I'm a real gamer and wanna wanna get through that. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
cue
for
'em up.
sure.
It's a
Okay,
fun
that sounds
fun
interesting. I
genre. Yeah.
I love I love the Dreamcast in general. It's just there's something very Is there
Yeah.
something very hopeful, something very springy about that console? I don't
Which
know.
is kind of the exact opposite of its story, sadly. But
I know, yeah. Just like everything, every title felt so optimistic. Even
yeah, Jet
given
Set
the tumult behind
Radio.
the scenes.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
the
But yeah,
Seaman
we're
game,
looking at
that was a cool one.
Seaman. Don't forget about Seaman.
We
Yeah,
like
I
that.
hear that game is. I hear that game is wild. I have never played it, but
Yeah, he like
Seaman. It's got
evolves into a
Leonard.
frog. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Isn't Leonard Nimoy the narrator? I'm pretty sure he is.
I
Like
think
Spock is the
so.
narrator. Yeah.
That sounds
Yeah.
right. That sounds weird, but right.
What
Awesome.
man?
That's the killer app of the Dreamcast, Seaman.
It's
You heard it
it's
here
killer
first,
something.
folks.
It's killing me. I mean, what an idea.
Yeah.
Seaman. What an insane. There's I hate to bring up Giant Bomb again because I love them so dearly, but there's an old clip of them watching Seaman, like basically like they made this like fake news story to promote Seaman. I think for maybe a commercial or
Yeah.
promotional material, and they were watching it. Like it felt like a fake news broadcast of scientists finding this creature called the Seaman and stuff, and showing a weird skeleton and everything.
Yeah.
Maybe
I've seen
we'll
that
link it in the
commercial.
show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll link it because it's wild when you realize what the game is. And I think Leonard Nimoy is actually in that little blurb.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, there's a whole thing we could get into about video game.
That's something they got to
is
remaster. They got to remaster Seaman, and they got to
Got
give you the
to.
actual mic inputs from your,
just.
microphone.
I say this all the time. I say this all the time about Sega games. Just put it in the Yakuza Sega arcade. Just do
Well,
it. Put that
Seaman
in
wasn't
Shenmue.
like an arcade game, so maybe
I
just
know,
like
I
have
know.
like whoever the new guy is in the third of
Listen,
his.
I know they're
series.
not arcade games. I know they're not, but
Have
just
him own
do
like
it
a
for me.
Dreamcast. Like he's a freak, anyways, from what I understand, right? He'd own a Dreamcast. So
yeah, I don't know.
he have him own a
Just put it
Dreamcast,
on.
but the only game he owns is Seaman, and
Oh.
then you can play Seaman if you play the third of that Yakuza RPG series. There you go, Sega. That's my idea. Gift from
Sega,
me
we're-
to you, Sega.
Sega, we
Give
can print you
the
money.
players
Just
what
hire
they
us,
want.
Yeah, just the people are clamoring. You can hear them shouting from the mines. Yes.
It's just like how I'm always
Um,
clamoring for that Concord, I mean, we got to get it back. That was the game
There's
of the
been a
year for
development
me.
about this.
Yeah.
Listen, that secret level show, they are doing that. So
They are.
Um,
You're saying they're just gonna rip it like out, like it's gonna happen.
I thought they would because they don't want to ever acknowledge that game ever happened. But they are actually going through with the
Oh, they're not
expensive
tearing it out,
CG
okay.
episode. No, they are going to
That's
show it.
awesome.
which
I
is
can't
crazy.
wait for my favorite Concord characters, like Green Man and Robot.
Hey, robot. How will I find out about Star Child any other way?
Is that his name?
Child.
I'd believe you if you said that was his name.
Listen, I could be completely fooling you, or it could be real, and it would.
It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna verify this. That's just canon for me.
Don't. Maybe I'm just making it up. I don't know. I just know that game is so mid that they destroyed the studio recently.
Right, but we can agree that that's going to be our collective game of the year is Concord.
I would rather eat a Concord grape than talk about Concord anymore.
I mean those grapes are pretty good too, right?
I'd rather tie a cord around my neck and hang myself than talk about.
Well, okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, to each their own.
Teach their own. Some people,
Listen,
that's fun,
listen.
but for me,
This is all for jokes.
Concord's more fun.
Listen, we're joking, we're memeing. This is a great thing. We have this Concord shared love. I
We love
understand.
Concord.
I bring this up every time you say it. The game is so not good. It's so not good.
Yes, but in my head,
so not
it's the
good.
perfect game, right? It's
low
that
key.
game where I'm never gonna play it, and so now I can experience
you're not.
Concord as the purest form of gaming in my head. So to
The
me,
purest form of gaming is the people that went for the platinum trophy before they took it off the server.
for
That's the
me,
purest form.
Concord is gaming, right?
Okay.
It
Let's
can
not
be any game that I want it to be because it doesn't exist anymore. anymore.
Sure. It's this aspirational middle point for gaming as a medium that you're trying to strive for. I understand. Listen,
it's
this
also
is a
going to be
fun
the
joke.
death of like like really bad, out of touch AAA games, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It's going to
it's
mark
kind
the
of
beginning of the end at the very least, and we're going to see a lot
it's
less
a
of
it
these.
is yeah, it is a industry touchstone for what not to do in making a
Yeah,
game, not to chase trends. It's like proof pudding.
yeah,
That you should not do what Concord did, because Sony really thought they had something with Concord and they
they
super
did,
did it.
but
They bought the studio with the promise that like, hey, we're gonna make a killer app, and they super did not. So
yeah,
Concord is a funny joke, I understand, but you can't keep getting away with this. That's all I have to say. No more. I'm not talking about Concord with you anymore. Right.
What do you mean?
Okay? Put my foot in the ground, okay? I'm juking you. We are no longer talking about Concord.
What about Bubsy 3D though?
Okay, we can talk about that maybe later. But the next time you bring up Concord, we have to watch the secret level on it and talk about it.
Yes.
Because otherwise,
yes.
Concord is BANNED.
Okay.
Ban.
Okay. We're banning Concord. I understand until that secret level or whatever it's called comes out.
Yeah, it's like December 10th or something.
Okay,
it's coming out.
Put it on your calendars, folks. December 10th.
No, I will not. You will, I have no doubt you will tell me when Concord episode is coming. I have zero doubt. Oh, Concord. You were so young.
So much.
Killed in the cradle.
Yeah.
Killed in the cradle. All right.
So much.
Let's talk about the Switch 2. Let's talk about the Switch 2. No more Concord. Let's talk about the Switch 2.
Yeah.
What do we want out of the new handheld?
Games.
There's been some rumored specs. I mean, yeah, obviously, but there's been some rumored specs for that came out in some recent filings, and they think it's going to be around a PS4 in terms of power.
That's what I've been expecting. Yeah.
And that's honestly exactly what we would want. Nintendo, they don't shoot for power anyway. They make good games, but if you get the Pokemon's running on it better, then we will be set for life, honestly.
Yeah.
So
we
got that
HD
out of the way
Hypno and the HD Typlosion, right?
Right, you got to have that. I mean, HD it up, 4K HD, HDR. Got to see every fur, every.
Typlosion did nothing wrong.
Well, allegedly, this is yet to be proven in court. The backwards compatibility with the original Switch is going to come. So is the NSO service with all the consoles, as far as I know, including the mature N64 app. I would think.
Oh yeah,
so
that mature. Oh wait, funny anecdote about that. I had my nephews over the other day, and they're going through my Switch, and they're like, "Oh, mature Nintendo? What's that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll just pull it up."
Dinosaur.
Yeah, let's just pull it up. So I pulled it up. I'm like, "Look, it's Turok and Perfect Dark. How mature."
How mature. Oh man, they don't even say a curse word in either game.
No.
Oh, what will we do?
Yeah.
Nintendo's so weird, man. They're so weird. They're like, oh, can't have a kid stumbling onto Turok 1.
Not Turok 1. Spare the children.
The dinosaurs, they say the F word. Watch out.
Yeah, Miyamoto himself, I believe, was quoted saying "spare the children." By the way, so
that's what he said. Yes, he said no Turok for the kids. Turok is not for the children. Say that. Wu Tang is for the children. Turok is not.
Yeah,
that's what we're saying.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. I agree. I agree with that stance too. I mean,
I agree with Miyamoto. He's just looking out for the best.
But the Mario with like the flowers that say like they trash talk you the whole game. It's like that's fine.
Oh yeah, they're like you're trying your best. What was it? Super Mario Wonder?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like.
Was that this year or was that last year? That was the end of last year, right?
Last year.
Yeah.
That was like it was. Yeah. It's fine. I don't prefer that style of Mario game anymore. It's okay. It's pretty good.
I think it's one of the best of that sort of 2D style. Like
yes, I agree. I think it is.
They tried to innovate as best they could in that space, and it's been stagnant for a long time since like the new Super Mario Brothers.
Mario World. Yeah, it's the best side scroller since Mario World.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I could get behind that. So besides like those
it's
Mario
a good
makers,
game.
Right? So.
Yeah, that's a different thing. But I totally get what you're saying. I think it's not my cup of tea anymore. I prefer the 3D.
Oh yeah, the 3D is the more
Yeah.
like actualized version of that, right? It
Mm.
feels like that
Yeah.
2D is just sort of like a watering down for newer players, more casual players, but
Right.
also like for like the people who want that, like those Sonic freaks that are always like, we want 2D Sonic, don't give us 3D Sonic, we want 2D Sonic. We don't want cool stuff like Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2. We don't want that. It's like, no, that's what we want.
He tapped his foot because he was mad at you for not playing the game. We need that.
No, I like those 2D Sonics are great, but like Sonic Adventure 2, that's where that game really grew its legs.
I am of the opinion that good. That's just me.
Those games are great.
I know I'm barking up the wrong tree, and I understand that this has been the major contention of our friendship. But anyway, Switch 2. What do we want?
Sonic Adventure 2.
No,
I've been waiting for that since like the 3DS like remake of that.
I have an idea. I think you should get a Dreamcast and play that on your own time.
I mean, I've played that game a million times. I've played it on GameCube. I've played it on Xbox. I've played it on PC. It's on everything.
Yeah, Sonic Adventure 2. Man, it's just not a good game.
The Sonic and Shadow levels are awesome.
Tomato. Anyway, I'm not trying to yuck your yum. But I guess, with all this stuff coming over, to transition a little bit from Sonic and Concord, my goodness. Since we're talking about the Switch 2 a little bit, the NSO stuff carrying over, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's the right move? I do, personally.
Oh, yeah, that's the right move. Keep letting us play our games that we bought. Because Switch 2 is essentially going to be the same thing as just a beefier Switch 1, so that's what we always
exactly
want.
What
we want to play our games, right? Yeah. Because then if it has no games, then it doesn't matter. We have our old games, and so we'll go and visit games that are in our backlogs, but on a fancier new hardware. Maybe they run better. They don't have to, but that'd be cool.
Do you think they'll charge an upgrade fee, or do you think they just run better?
Surely not. They're saying that like they will have access to those games on our NSO, so like surely they don't do the upgrade fee route, and they just like, yeah, you can run this game, and it might run better. It might run about the same, but I think if they did like a remake, from Switch 1 to Switch 2, then maybe they'd charge like an upgrade fee. I don't know why they'd do that within that time space. But
Sony does that. That's kind of why I say that. I mean, they charge for their. I have Horizon Zero Dawn, for instance, in the remaster. I don't know why they remastered it. It came out this week, and I was like, "That's $10. I'll buy it." Yeah, because I own the original. I could see Nintendo doing, "Hey, this is." Yeah, Nintendo's like, "Hey, you have this digital copy of Breath of the Wild. Why don't you pay 20 smackaroons to play this on your new thing?"
It wouldn't be 20, would it? Maybe like 5 or 10, but 20? Come on, Nintendo. Come on, Reggie.
Come on. Nintendo is greedy, man. They could do it. Get away with it.
Reggie wouldn't do that.
Reggie, he's a bag of Pizza Hut or something. He's not the vanguard for Switch pricing anymore.
Yeah.
We have to talk to Miyamoto himself and say, "Hey, lower these prices."
Yeah, Miyamoto's the only guy working at Nintendo now. It's kind of crazy.
He's the only. He's not even working there. He's hanging out with Donkey Kong these days. He's at Donkey Kong.
Yeah, he's at that. Yeah, the Donkey Kong in Universal. Yep.
Yeah, he's just giving Donkey Kong hugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to see Miyamoto, just go to that Donkey Kong at Universal.
Oh yeah, he'll be hanging out with Rambi, and he was hitting the bongos.
That's a cool character.
Yeah, there's a really funny tweet I saw where someone says like, "Yeah, I was at Nintendo World and I was at Donkey Kong Country, and the 8-year-old beside me didn't play the bongos good enough, so Rambi didn't show up, so I punted him into the ozone layer."
Yes.
That's pretty good.
That's the appropriate response, folks. If you see an 8-year-old not playing the game right, if you don't get to see Rambi, just kick him out of there. Get him out of there. Like, they don't deserve to be there. They need to be kicked out of that park and banned for life if they're not playing those DK bongos, right? I can play Dark Souls with those DK bongos. Like, So they should be able to play freaking whatever Donkey Kong Jungle Jamboree that's going on there, like on those DK bongos. It's not hard, folks. It's not hard. Like,
It's not hard. You're just weak.
That
You're just
DK
weak
rhythm
and you
game.
don't want to hear
Speaking
it.
of good rhythm games, so like that's a good rhythm game. They have freaking All Star by Smash Mouth on that. Oh, peak 2000s.
Oh, do they really? That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's awesome. It's an awesome game.
Oh, the odd.
Different soundtracks for whichever region of the game you're playing as well. So you get a completely different like song list if you're playing the European or the Japanese version. So pretty fun little rhythm game with those DK bongos.
Bingo, bango, bongo.
Yeah, they're pretty easy to use too.
Yeah, no, they actually perform really well. I played it years ago at a friend's house, and I was like, wow, this actually responds exactly the way I wanted to. Yeah. But when you play it in long sessions, you just hear the bongo all the time. You're like,
sure,
I'm going to do the sound of this bongo.
Yeah, there's one enough is enough, right, with the bongos, and so I don't play it for extended periods, but when I do play it, I have a good time.
Because then you'll start getting tinnitus from it or something, just in your daily walks, just going like, I just hear the bongos.
You really gotta like do a really good clap too for that mic to pick.
It's like a
up.
pop.
Yeah, you gotta have that pop sound on your clap, otherwise that mic in the middle won't pick it up.
You gotta slap that meat hard. You gotta go whack whack. It's gotta pick it up.
They also had that.
Your hands have to ring.
Yeah, they had that platformer as well on the GameCube. I never got around to checking out. But that was also controlled with those DK bongos. So
it's not Jungle Beat, right? It's the other one.
No, it's not Jungle Beat. It's something else. But Jungle Beat was the rhythm game, I believe. So they made 2 of them, I think, in the US, and then 3 of them in Japan. So
Japan gets the extra one, man. They didn't think
they really like those games in Japan. So
yeah. Do you think they're going to put out a new Donkey Kong for the Switch, like a game, like the purported?
I think we're going to see
Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, they've got the Donkey Kong Country Returns coming out soon on Switch, I think. But
they do, and I wonder if the rumor was because had to do with that being a remaster, or is it like a new game? Because it was rumored a couple years ago that Donkey Kong something, and it was not a retro. It was actually like NPD 2, 3, whatever it was, like one of the main studios.
Yeah.
Or EPD, whatever. The Mario Odyssey team apparently was tasked with making it apparently like 2 or 3 years ago. But I don't know if that ever came from fruition.
Might be a Switch 2 launch title, because they really are pushing Donkey Kong right now with like the Universal and with this Donkey Kong Returns, and even like the Mario movie itself had a lot of Donkey Kong.
Yeah, they really are.
I think they're getting people ready for more Donkey Kong as like an IP.
I love Donkey Kong.
Yeah, no, I do too. Yeah.
I think the only Nintendo shirt I own that's not Zelda is Donkey Kong eating a banana. So he's my boy. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, they are going to release that in holiday 2025. Like they're just not. They're
for
going
Switch
to
2, I
talk
think.
For Switch 2. Yeah, they're going to talk about it in like April, like at the end of the quarter, and they're going to have a lead up of a bunch of games and a bunch of directs, and they're going to release that thing in like November or October or something, just before the holiday rush. Right, because the thing that really signals this to me, and this is probably going to be cross generation, of course, because of the the backwards compatibility news, the Xenoblade Chronicles X thing. I just, that one is proof for me to go like, hey, this is kind of like the last one of these Wii U games. Since it's going to be on both consoles anyway, why don't we just put it out the end of the generation? Which begs the question, why aren't the Zelda ones out? Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it feels more obvious to me with every passing day that is going to be fall to winter thing.
They might want to be saving those Zelda games to sell Switch 2. Those could help sell, honestly, consoles.
If they did, I would be even more stoked, because I love Wind Waker so much. It might be my favorite Zelda game.
See, I like that Twilight Princess port, so like that's
I hear that is a good port.
Yeah.
I attempted
Wind
to play
Waker's
the original
alright, but...
on. Yeah, I attempted to play the original on my mod of Wii, the Twilight Princess, and I just couldn't do it. It's like it was
love that
unreadable.
game.
Yeah, it just the visual quality of it was so poor. Like I genuinely could not see that.
That HD version is incredible. Of
I hear it is really good.
Yeah,
I hear it's awesome.
And like that's one of those games where like every time I'm playing through it, like prepare to cry. It's one of those like deeply emotional experiences. Like I love that game.
Midna, my orange lady.
Yeah, bite-sized, little goblin, but
well, kind of. I mean, she's a sexy lady, right?
No,
she's
like a little like small mascot. That's like saying like freaking I don't know, like a little like panda bear thing would be like attractive. Like it's kind of like a mascot thing. I don't get the
but
of the small one when she's big like at the end, then like big Midna's like
that's what I'm
we like
about.
big lady Midna, right? Like sexy
about.
lady.
I'm not
no,
I'm not sexy lady for the cherub.
Okay, you had me concerned like the little like cherub like imp.
Well, you made it sound like Midna was always the little version of herself. I'm like, no, this is
majority of the game. She's the little one. Majority of the game, she's that little like. Some people are really into that little one though. Like,
all right,
there's some real freaks out there. Just so you're
there
aware.
are some freaks.
People like the little like goblin one.
They associate with Typhlosion and keep us company.
Yeah, big fans of what Typhlosion allegedly did.
Oh man, what an unfortunate situation. Do you think they put out a Pokemon? Do you think they put out a Pokemon game next year? I'm curious. I wonder.
It'd have to be. Well, they are putting out that ZA that is coming out confirmed next year. I don't think they put a main series next year. I think they saved that for the year after.
Gen 10, yeah.
Yeah, the Gen 10 I think is 2026. I hope, because I want them to have a lot of time to work on that. I want that to be a really innovative experience. Just like put Pow World in like the back of like people's heads. Like, oh, why did we even play that crap? Like I loved Pow World. It's not even like a genre that I really like. But I don't really like that survival genre that much, but like the creature collecting in that was a lot of fun.
Why does my Mabostiff have an AK-47 and is farming for me? What are we doing?
It's funny how much they pushed guns with that, because like that's like an end game thing in that game. Like it's like
that was a thing that like attracted people. People were going like, oh my god, Pokemon with guns, what is this?
You can give the like Pokemon guns pretty early on, like as like their signature like abilities, but like for your character to get guns, it takes a long time. I've done the whole like sort of playthrough of that experience, so and it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with that, especially like the exploration.
I hear it is a good game. Yeah, aside from the creative license, it is here it is a good game. So, I don't know if I'll ever check it out. I really don't have any desire to, but if you say it's good, I definitely
fun with friends for sure.
Okay, gotcha. But oh man, Pokemon Power World, they're all the same to me, man. I'm just too old for it. No, I'm kidding. I love Pokemon. I'm excited for the new Legends. I think Legends is gonna be great because
Legends is a great single player experience. Like that's
I loved Legends Arceus. It was so good, so good.
I think they're just gonna follow that up with like an even greater experience, hopefully with this.
I hope so. Yeah,
I'm not a huge Kalos fan, but like the futuristic style that they seem to be putting into this one, like it could be really interesting.
Oh, you just don't like the French. I understand. You don't like the
that
French.
too.
That's what your problem is.
Also, just Kalos is probably like one of the weakest regions in Pokemon.
What's wrong with Xerneas? You don't like Xerneas or Yveltal?
They're okay. Honestly, Zygarde is probably the coolest of that trio.
Yeah, Zygarde is cool. I like Zygarde. Yeah. Because you understand, it's like Y, X, and Z. It's crazy.
That gameplay, like I don't know, man. Like it feels like such a step down in like a devolution from Gen 5. Like Gen 5 is like the peak of that series.
Like
Oh
Black
man.
Tube, White Tube.
Yeah. Like that is just where that series really peaked, if
Well,
you ask me.
that's an original sequel to Black One, White One. That's the first time they ever really did that. But they
Yeah, those
continued
were
on storyline.
really successful games, but also just like that was like the last time they did that pixel
Yeah,
artwork, and like they were a
right.
master class of pixel artwork. Like they really knew what they were doing with those pixel art games.
Hmm.
But then they
I,
went to 3D
I,
and it got a little bit weird, a little bit ugly for a while.
yeah, yeah. I got to dig out my 3DS because all of them on there, and I really want to play through Black One and White One for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Playthrough.
I go so my goal. I want to play every Pokemon game and finish the decks, and each. That is like pie in the sky. It's so hard to do and transfer over these days,
Yeah.
but that is like something I really want to do. But it's so hard to literally catch them all because of all the event Pokemon and stuff like that, like Hoopla or Hoopa, whatever. You can
Hoopla.
never get that. Yeah, Hoopla, Hoopa, the what is it? The Mystic
Oh
Pokemon, the
yeah.
legendary one.
I think I've got
You
one
can
lying
never
around.
get. See, you might. I would love a Hoopa. Um, but there's like different specific Pokemon you cannot get other than event type or running a certain theme in your game. Like you'll get like a version of a legendary you can snag. Like for instance, like they're doing that what's the event in Scarvy with the dragon type. What is it?
They're so they got the shiny Rayquaza for the raid event.
Shiny
Yeah,
Rayquaza.
I
Yeah,
don't know when that
that's what it
is,
was.
but that's coming up, and so I'll probably I've got just
It's fun.
so many resources in Scarlet and Violet. I have like 600 and something hours in that game. So,
Wow. I have 100 for sure. I think I have 100.
yeah, I played
So.
that game to death, just like shiny
It's
hunting
such a
and
good
stuff
game.
like
It's
that.
such a
So,
bummer. It's such a bummer it doesn't run well because it's so good. I love that game
yeah,
so much.
the core experience of like that open world Pokemon is where
Yeah.
the game needs to be. Like I'm never
Yeah,
like the
I
type
agree.
that is we got to go open world, but for Pokemon in
Right.
particular, we got to go open world. That's like the one
Yeah.
like for FromSoft, I don't think they needed to go open world. I think their experiences were just fine. They were the way they were. It was an interesting
Hmm.
experiment with open world. I wouldn't like to see it again.
Yeah.
But for Pokemon, they have to go open world. That's the only way
Yeah.
forward with Pokemon is open world.
I think the open world, massively multiplayer idea is
Yeah,
such a good idea.
we've talked about the MMO idea, and Nintendo's been playing with MMO systems, and so in like their server
Hmm.
tests, and so I'd
Yeah.
love to
Not
see them
not
go
to
the MMO route.
Yeah, definitely not to rehash it, but yeah, I'm super with you. If they did something even close to that, it would be amazing. It just
I'd
I
even pay a
think this is
subscription for it. I would be down to pay a
yeah,
subscription
for sure.
service for that.
I don't think they would do this with Legends. I just don't see that happening. It feels like a single player Pokemon sort of
No,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah, so I think the best chance we have for this type of game would be Gen 10. So that's
yeah,
what I'd be looking forward to. But I do like the single player Pokemon type of game. It's fun.
yep,
It's kind of a bummer you don't have that communal aspect to it, but having kind of being on your own island doing that, it is really gratifying for sure. I adore it.
yeah. And I mean,
What a great game.
you can still like bounce ideas around with friends who are also playing
Yeah.
it. So it's similar
Hmm.
to the mainline, because in the end of the day, those mainlines are also like single player
Hmm.
up until really it was like Sword and Shield that started like having like more multiplayer elements to where you could have like four people doing a raid, and then Scarlet and Violet just kind of added on to that. They
Yeah.
have like that
So
DLC with like the Mochi collection game. I don't know if you
mhm,
played that Mochi collection game, but I've played that with like 3 or 4 players before that mini
mhm.
game, and it's really buggy, really messy, but it's still a lot of fun. And like you gotta
Nice.
really like coordinate. Like it's really tough, but you get a shiny Snorlax if you like beat it on the hardest difficulty. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow, that's an actually good that's a good gift.
they're
So
really good at
this
good
is
rewards with
yeah.
Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah, so that was going to be a segue into something else I've been playing is the TCG, the new one, the Pocket Edition, the
Sure, yeah.
Pokemon
I've heard
TCG
good
Pocket.
things about that. Like they give you a lot of
You should play it.
packs. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you should play it, especially at the beginning. They really give you a lot of good stuff. I
Is
got
it
the
pretty
best
easy to
card
deck
I've ever
build in
gotten
that
today.
game?
Oh, extremely,
Yeah.
extremely easy. I think you would have a lot of fun kind of playing other people because you can do private matches, you can do random matches, you can do solo
Yeah.
matches.
I'd love to play against you
Um,
sometime for sure.
yeah, please. Like I would download it tonight. They give you a million packs to start with, and you get a really good base to collect. And I think the season's going for another month or so, or a month or two. So you'll have plenty of time to get all the cards for this go around.
Sure.
But I got an amazing Mewtwo EX today that had an entire CG cinematic to it.
Ooh,
It was
nice.
insane. Like it was very luxe. It was very lush. Like
Yeah.
you get this card, it's Mewtwo breaking through a window, which is a cinematic. It's super cool. But like you open this pack up, it's like boom. I'm like, oh my gosh, the card has never done this before. And you zoom into the card, like literally into the scene, and it's Mewtwo jumping out of the window, out of the laboratory. It's super cool. I'm like, have they been doing this for a bunch of cards I haven't gotten? That's so exciting. So yeah, it's definitely worth playing. It's extremely easy to deck build, and you get more good cards than bad cards. I found.
Yeah.
I've got almost over half of what they have presented right now. It's like 200 some odd cards. I have like 160. I'm almost even done collecting for the season, which is really awesome. But yeah, you should. I think you should play it, and we can battle because I think it's awesome. So much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely Pokemon talk. So, yeah, we were talking about this at the we're kind of doing sound tests and stuff. We've been watching some stuff. And I actually, before we got on here, I actually finished Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I know it's an old joke. I really liked it. I had never seen it. I guess when did that even come? Was that 2 years ago or 3 years ago? It was a long
Yeah,
time.
it was I think 2 years ago. Yeah, Studio Triggers just kind of at it again with
Oh,
that
they're
sort
so
of
good.
just they have a style to their own that's just really like defines.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Have you seen Promare? Their movie Promare?
I have not. No.
Oh, you should. It's really good. It's from Trigger.
Yeah.
Again. It's like this. It's like what if firefighters were superheroes? Promare.
Yeah, I know of it.
super
I just
good.
haven't checked it out.
Okay,
Yet.
I didn't
Yep.
know if you were even familiar. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, if you want a fun movie to kind of watch on a weekend, that's it. It's like not that long. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Beautifully done. I just love their feature work. But yeah, I finished Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I have never played the game really, so I downloaded that after finishing that because I really
Okay.
liked.
I thought you played it for some reason.
Yeah, I had not because they hadn't really finished it for a long time.
But it's pretty
and I
finished
was-
now, from what I understand. But
It is, and that's because of the DLC. And basically, they like reworked the whole game. It's like
yeah.
2.0. Like they change like actual NPC behaviors. They change police alertness and combat. They even revamped the skill system. Like it's a different game. They also changed the openings for all three of your career paths: your street kid path, your corpo path, your what do you call it? The whatever the nomad one is.
Yeah.
They changed their openings for each of them, so
Okay.
they really have changed a lot of the game. And I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna wait until Phantom Liberty's out. I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna just play it all at once I get done with Game of the Year. That's what I'm gonna do. So, in between me playing other stuff, I'm going to be playing some Cyberpunk here on out.
I talked to a lot of people that really liked that game even at launch. So
Yeah, me too.
I've talked to a lot of
Yeah.
people that like it even more now, like after it's
And I
like
hear
a
the
complete
DLC. Yeah, definitely. It's a great package now because they fixed all the stuff that was busted with it, and it looks gorgeous. They really did a great visual pass and overhaul on it, and it's not glitchy for any aspect of the game as far as I can see. I mean, you'll encounter stuff from here and there, just but from what I can tell, it's extremely well put together after having them work on it for 3-4 years. So
Yeah.
it was the right decision to wait for me. I bought it a long time ago, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy this game. I'm gonna wait until they're completely done with it. And now 3 years later, they have the DLC and we're ready to go. So I watched the anime, really liked it. I didn't love it. It was good. It was good. It was very, It's like an 8 out of 10 for me. Um,
Yeah.
and I was just like, I'm gonna jump into the game. So I played a little bit of that before we jumped on here.
Yeah,
And
that
I'll probably pick away at that.
yeah,
So
that's kind of how I was after watching it when it came out. I was like, oh, I gotta play this Cyberpunk game
yeah.
now, but I barely like did anything with it. I played like a few minutes of
Yeah.
it. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't really play open world games, and so
Sure.
I shut it down pretty quick. But
It seems like something I would like. So
yeah,
I just
it does seem like
at
something
it.
you'd like. I was surprised that you hadn't gotten through that yet,
Mhm.
but it actually,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm just
looking at
waiting.
it.
Yeah.
It's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, so like people really like that
Oh wow.
Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Yeah,
I didn't know it was that well regarded.
yeah, a
That's
lot of
kind of
people like
awesome.
that.
It's extremely well done. Like the themes are really interesting in terms of like how much humanity do you retain when you modify yourself, and you know what's important about life and what's important about career, and kind of what's the delineation between the two, and just basically like what would it be living in a corporate world where company, like what if Amazon ran your school and stuff, like how would that be, you're going
Yeah,
to Arasaka school or whatever. They're run by corpos, but they run every aspect of your life, including tenements and food and commerce. Like how would it be if Walmart ran the USA? Like it's like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So yeah, a lot of interesting ideas, and I think Trigger is just, they might have the best, like my favorite like style of anime. It's very gonzo, very stylistic, very
Oh, don't get me
compassion
started on
abrasive.
Gonzo. That's my favorite studio that doesn't exist anymore. So, but
Yeah, okay,
uh,
yeah, that might be a conversation
yeah,
at some point.
Gonzo. I could do a whole like series on Studio Gonzo's works. Like I own a lot of them on DVD because I just love Gonzo. So
Well, listen, like crash courses, we can keep it to games, but like if you want to talk about Gonzo, let's talk about it. Like I just don't,
yeah,
I don't think it has to strictly be about games. You can definitely,
we could always just make a new pod for that, but we can discuss that another time.
yeah. We could do like, I don't know, we could do like a watch cast sort of thing where we talk about a show and be like, hey, we watched all the show, we're going to talk
Yeah.
when we, like, for instance, like we're going to do that with Sonic
Hmm.
3, and we're going to probably, we could break it out into its own
We'll
thing.
probably want to talk about Arcane too when we get done with
I
Arcane
think you're
season
right.
2.
Yeah. What is the release cadence for this season? I understand
I don't understand it either. Yeah, I don't. They just have the first 3 right now, but
it's so annoying to me. Like Netflix needs to just figure out their release cadence. They
so
do this all the time, where they just put out like a few
okay.
episodes and they go, like, "We're
Part
gonna come back
2
later."
is November 16th. Part 3 is November 23rd.
It's just
So it's releasing throughout
put
the
it
month.
out or put it out weekly. Like put it out once or put it out weekly. Just
They
don't
want to
do
put it
this.
out in like these like 3 episode segments, I guess, but
It doesn't make sense. Just do it weekly then. Like I understand that's against their, vision for their service, but they always put stuff out complete. So why don't you just either do that or put it out weekly? It just makes
yeah,
no
put it
sense.
out weekly like a normal platform. Yeah, I'd agree with
Yeah,
that.
that's why I appreciate about like Max or Apple TV. Like
Or Hulu, yeah.
they have their shows, their prestige shows, and they just one week at a time keeps the conversation going. When Netflix, they just like crap out a show and they're like, watch it all in a day.
Yeah.
I'm just like not interested.
You
And
watched
you then like that's what happened with Fallout too, where they put it out, and Fallout's an amazing show, so
Okay.
good. But
I
like
haven't checked
they
that one
they
out yet.
binge it and it's over.
Yeah.
Like you've seen it all and it's over. Conversation dwindles after that. So anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
You watched that Shogun on Hulu, right? That Shogun remake.
I've seen 2 episodes of Shogun.
Okay.
I will watch.
I
more
watched
Shogun.
that whole thing.
Yeah, I really
I
liked it.
absolutely fell in love with that. So I actually
hear
own the
it's super
original
well
on
done.
VHS as well. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hear that. I hear Hiroyuki Sanada just clears in that show.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of picking through stuff. Like I'm finishing up my backlog anime. We're watching through like some random shows. Like we're watching Arcane, we're watching Full Metal, like I said. I finished Dragon Ball Z Kai, like I put in our notes for sure. I really love Dragon Ball. Like it's probably my favorite anime, just in
Yeah.
terms of just like how I feel about it. It's so important to me. It feels like I've grown up with it a little bit in terms of like being a parent and coming out of childhood almost into adulthood. And it's nice to see how characters in the shows really change and ebb and flow. Like
Yeah.
when they're an antagonist, then they become like a protagonist or a sidekick, or like for instance, like you see Piccolo, he's like the big bad in original Dragon Ball, and in the new series, he's basically an ally. He isn't. I mean, he trains Gohan for Pete's sake. So
Yeah.
it's just cool. I really love Dragon Ball. I love how it ended, especially. I didn't love the Majin Buu arc that much. I thought it was fine. It felt like it was bolted on, like I mentioned. But all in all, Dragon Ball Z is just it's so much better than Dragon Ball original. But I don't know. I feel warm feelings about both. They're different things.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball is an adventure anime. Dragon Ball Z is a shonen. It's a shonen. It's one of the first examples of that. But yeah, if you're gonna watch Dragon Ball, people like the original, like straight up Dragon Ball Z. But I like Kai. They edited a lot of it, cut it down, cut out some filler, really changed some voice actors. Like they changed the voice actor for Frieza. The original actress for Frieza, I think she like retired or something. So this new guy came in, Chris Ayres for Frieza, and he just kills it. It's so good. But they keep some regular voice actors. Like for instance, Cell is the same. Majin Buu, I think, is the same. Most of them are returning, but the edits they do, the kind of trimmed down versions of their episodes, I think it's just such a good show. So fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll watch Super immediately after this, because there are the movies, and I hear that they get cut up into Super, so it's kind of redundant if you watch the Super movies because they're in the show kind of chopped up. It's like what the Demon Slayer stuff is, where they like have the movie, but they made a season chopping up the movie and adding stuff to it. It's like because it's canon. But anyway, I'll probably watch some more Dragon Ball Super at some point. But it's one of those things where I can finish the long show and I kind of want to pick at smaller stuff. So
yeah, and that's kind of adjacent to like gaming as well, like the Kira Toriyama stuff, because like Chrono Trigger,
it really is.
Dragon Quest,
Chrono Trigger, Dragon Quest. That's another thing. Dragon Quest 3 comes out. It's out right now. I bought that. So that will be something we talk about next week probably.
I need to check. I need to check that series out. I've never touched that series, and I've never touched Chrono Trigger. But this whole like 16-bit era is not something that I'm too familiar with. I kind of stick with like the 32-bit sort of era.
Yeah. I've always attempted to finish Chrono Trigger and never been able to actually see it through. It will happen one of these days. I had the Steam version, so when I actually build this PC that I've been threatening to build the last couple of years, I'll probably actually play it on that, or when I get a Steam Deck. Either way. I will play through Chrono Trigger in an actual way. I have the Nintendo DS version, which I hear is like maybe the best version to play.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's just something about it. It's like on that 3DS screen, it's just not very clear. It's very grimy looking.
Yeah.
And I don't want to clean that version of Chrono Trigger necessarily, but I don't want that version necessarily. So.
Yeah, if I play it, I'm gonna play it on that CRT behind me. But
which that would be ideal, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chrono Trigger is something I will do. I'm gonna play Dragon Quest at some point. I don't know when that's gonna happen because I have a couple RPGs I really want to blow through. It depends on how long Dragon Quest 3 is. If it's like 30 to 40 hours, I might just truck through it.
I don't know how
Silent
long
Hill was like
that is. I don't think it would be that long, but
I don't think so either. Yeah, I think it's just a remake straight up. So
yeah,
they're really just doing a visual pass on it, not really changing the content of the game. If it's like a short enough span, I will probably dig into it a little bit. I really need to look at how long to beat, see what people finished it at.
Yep. I use that as a pretty good resource.
I finished Silent Hill 2. I started it last Monday and finished it, Sunday? Yeah. So like I blew through that. I was like 20 hours. So I'm definitely down to. Yeah, I'm definitely down for like a longish experience, but not too long. Like Persona 3 Reload is like 80 hours or 70 hours, depending on how long you want to put into it. And then Metaphor is like 100. So I really need to be choosy with my time coming up. But yeah, Dragon Quest 3 I will definitely be playing because I bought it. It seems really good. I just love that HD 2D. It's so beautiful. It looks so
Octopath Traveler kind of just like sold everyone on that like style, and like now everyone's just like doing that, and I love it. I love that HD 2D. Like it's
such a good idea.
Has it. They did that Star Ocean 2 remake. I actually own the original Star Ocean 2 on
do you really?
PS1. Okay. Wow. I haven't played it yet because I want to play through Star Ocean 1 first.
Oh, sure.
But
There's
those
a
are
lot of
interesting because those are like that was an offshoot of
uh-huh.
the team that did the original Tales of.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
it's got a similar combat style. Yep. And so,
Interesting.
because they had like creative differences, and so that team went on to form a new
They
team, and
split.
so
Okay.
they started the
Okay.
Star Ocean series. Yeah. So,
Wow.
and that's kind of like
That's also
more
a Square Enix joint. Yeah.
my like cup of tea, anyways. It's like the Star, the sci-fi sort of fantasy. I like that a little bit
Yeah.
more, like the Fantasy Star stuff. I've actually
Really.
played like the original Fantasy Star, like the Master System one, just fairly
Mm-hmm.
recently, and I really enjoyed that. I played it without like a guide too. Like I just played it
Oh,
raw,
wow.
and I was
Wow.
able to like struggle my way through it. But
That's hardcore. Yeah, I hear Fantasy Star 2 and 4 are the best ones.
yeah,
That's what I hear.
yeah.
Um,
I've heard that you can just kind of like skip that third one, but
yeah, me too.
the
Yeah, I have heard that.
fourth one is like that's like that 16-bit like era, like
Hmm.
the like pinnacle of that Fantasy
Yeah.
Star original series. But I've also played a little bit of like the episodic the first episode of Fantasy Star Online, so
Yeah.
like on the GameCube. I played that,
Right.
and because you could actually get like Chow for your Chow Garden in Sonic through that
Oh, really?
original Fantasy Star game. Yeah, you could get like a
That's
Tails
wild.
Chow from doing
Hmm.
that. So yeah,
That's wild. I love cross media and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, like I think in PSO2 you can wear a Dreamcast on your character, which is really fun.
yeah,
Random stuff like that. Sega properties kind of blending into their other stuff.
yeah.
But
I
yeah,
played a good amount of Fantasy Star Online too. That it's a pretty good MMO. If I
yeah.
like,
They actually
oh good,
they brought it to Xbox recently, which is kind of
okay,
crazy.
nice, yeah.
Um, uh, I don't know why you would, but they did it after 18 years after the fact or whatever. So
Yeah. Well, they
um,
recently did the the remaster of it or whatever. So
that's
like
what I
the
mean. Yeah,
Genesis,
they
New
brought that
Genesis
one.
or whatever.
Hmm.
That's the
New
version I'm
Genesis.
familiar
Yeah,
with. Yeah. But like,
yeah,
it's got a
that's the
pretty
one.
dedicated community. Like, it honestly,
That's
it's
what I
a
hear.
toss up between that one and like Final Fantasy 14 as for like which one I like better. But both of those are like
Hmm.
really solid MMOs. If that's the sort of thing.
14 is like, yeah, 14 is like my white whale. That's the game I know I will love, and I just have not dedicated myself
It's
to it.
really awesome story. The gameplay is
Yeah.
fairly fun once you get the hang of it, and like that,
I
just
also
like
don't
the MMO
know.
like raid style like gameplay is like a lot of fun, and like if you have a group of people like that
Mhm.
are willing to play it, that's like the best way to play it.
Yeah, I also don't know what platform I would want to play on. Does it feels like it can be played on console, but does
It
it feel
can.
good on console?
A
So
lot
I
of
think I might
people
just,
like if that's what you learn it on. I think a lot of
yeah, yeah,
people they have those controls to where you can pretty decently play that on console, so they knew what they were doing when they ported it to console.
I think I would probably play it on PC though, because it's intricate enough, and I feel like if I build a PC, it'll be the first thing I play on it. So yeah, it's a step I need to take. Whenever that does happen, I need to get what your world is so I can play with you. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, but anyway, yeah, lots of random stuff. We've been, like I said, we've been trickling some Christmas in, where I think we're actually, might be the earliest we've ever done this. We're probably gonna put up the tree, like next holiday or not next holiday, next weekend. Sorry, it's late. I think we're gonna do that this weekend, and
Yeah.
that's going to be interesting. We usually, like last year, we did it like 2 weeks before Christmas, and then we kept it up till March, I want to say, because we suck. And it's a pain. But we
Yeah.
have this fake tree. We don't ever buy new ones or real ones. We just throw
Sure.
it up and put a bunch of stuff on it. So we've been watching some B tier Christmas movies like Four Christmases and Christmas with Franks and
Oh yeah.
stuff that's not like the classics. I don't want to watch classics like a month before Christmas. I really want to be in the December month when it's super chilly watching that stuff. So it's just a vibes thing,
But
really.
you got to
But
get those Zuzu's pedals in, from It's a Wonderful Life. So
oh, I love that movie so much. It is maybe
prepare
a
to
perfect
cry.
that movie. It makes me cry every time.
Yeah.
Like it is perfect.
Fantastic
People didn't
movie.
like that movie when it came out, which is nuts.
That's
I
nuts.
couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
Also, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, very good movie too. Also by Frank Capra, who did It's a Wonderful Life. Hello, Mary. I love him so much
Yeah.
in that movie. It's just it's such a warm blanket of a movie. It really is. Even with the depressing subject matter, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much the pod today. If there's anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about some of the stuff I've been watching. I watched. I actually recently finally got through the original Gundam Seed series, so now I'm on
Oh
Gundam
yes,
Seed
yes.
Destiny. You're talking about earlier with like Cyberpunk and the relationship between like how much can you do to change a human for them to be human still. They kind of talk about
Yeah,
that
how much
a
you retain,
lot
yeah, right.
with they've got like the conflict between what they call the naturals and the coordinators, and the coordinators are kind of
Mm.
like the genetically modified humans to where they're like have higher reaction times and all that
Oh,
good
sure.
stuff. They don't catch diseases and all that good stuff, and
Oh,
so the
very interesting.
naturals are like just normal people, and so there's conflict between those two people groups. But yeah, and so that's been pretty good, and I actually own all of Gundam Seed Destiny on DVDs, so I've finally been able to break those out and start watching those DVDs. So it's been good. But I actually went to theaters with a buddy of mine to watch that new Overlord movie for
Oh,
Overlord season 4. They did a movie to tie in to that. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Overlord Isekai series, but it's a pretty cool series. So
yeah, I hear it is good. It's been one of those like isekai shows. If I was gonna watch any of them, it'd be probably that or ReZero. That I
yeah,
think I
check
would probably
out
jump
Overlord.
into.
I think
So
you'd like Overlord a little bit better than ReZero. I love ReZero, but I
yeah,
think you might
it's got a
like
great theme.
Overlord a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah, the theme song for Overlord's amazing. So
Yeah, yeah, Overlord's just
at least the
so cool.
first season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome.
But yeah, that movie was really good to watch in
Hmm.
theaters.
Any Chris, any Christmas stuff or no?
Nah, I'm not. Not. I'm a
Too early.
Grinch. I'm a Grinch.
Oh,
Bahamut.
good Grinch. I really am too. I'm kowtowing to my wife. I'm just going. I just been like, you know what? Just do what you want. It's fine. I'm gonna grumble about it, but if you're gonna make me do it, I'm just gonna do it. So I take my Christmas pills, my sugar pills.
Yep.
So
But
um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's fun. When was the last time I've been to a theater? I don't remember. I think oh yeah, I went and saw Long Legs this past fall, and I was very middle of the road on that movie. I don't know when the next time I will go see a movie will be. It's probably gonna be like Gladiator 2 or something. Some big
Yeah, I've heard mixed
those
things
two.
about Gladiator 2. It's one I'm really looking
Yeah,
forward to, but I'll at least give it a
me
shot.
too.
But that
I mean,
original
yeah,
Gladiator is
I
just
like
a
big movies.
classic.
So good. Are you not entertained? It's the best. It's
Yeah,
the
I own that
best.
on
Russell
VHS. It's
Crowe got
great.
real fat. Russell Crowe got real fat, and he doesn't look like that anymore. But he's got two Exorcism Pope movies that we should watch, like Russell Crowe. So
Yeah.
he made two separate Exorcism priest movies in the same year.
Hmm. Nice.
So ridiculous. Russell Crowe, fat Russell Crowe. The best Russell Crowe movie, in my opinion, besides A Beautiful Mind, is The Nice Guys. Have you ever heard The Nice Guys?
No.
Oh, dude, you do yourself a favor. The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling, actually, who is hilarious in that movie. They play a couple 70s detective. Well, one of them's a detective, one's kind of a hitman. They're trying to find out about a bunch of murders in the industry. It's really cool. It's a great movie. It's so funny, so funny. It's by Shane Black, who did Lethal Weapon and a bunch of he wrote Predator, and yeah, Shane Black's got a long Hollywood list and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you want a good movie, The Nice Guys, excellent movie. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's what I've been watching
Yeah.
for sure.
I've watched a
So
lot of those like historical sort of dramas recently. Like I watched Braveheart recently. That's a great one.
oh yeah,
Um
you will love yeah,
mhm.
Braveheart.
great one.
I like Mel
I
Gibson.
actually watched Excalibur for the first time recently. I found it on VHS,
Yeah.
and I had never heard of this movie, but I was like, that sounds cool, so I picked it up, and it was great. It was
The movie's pretty
fantastic.
sick. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was pretty sick. Yeah.
yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I remember, what was it? It was an old textbook I saw where they like showed like the swords from Excalibur the movie, and they're like, "Oh, they spent so much time creating chainmail for this movie, and they all did it by hand." I'm like, "Well, that's so cool." I hadn't seen Excalibur until like the last 5-6 years. I'm like, man, that
Yeah.
movie whips. It's so good.
It's a great movie.
I just
yeah.
like all that. I love medieval classic of swords.
Yeah,
That's why
especially
there's no problem
Arthurian
with
legend for me. Like I love that stuff. So,
Oh yeah, Arthurian legend. If you like that, you should watch The Green Knight. Have you heard of The Green Knight?
I've read the book. I didn't realize they made
Oh,
yeah, I didn't realize they made a movie adaptation, but I read the
yeah.
book for like
It is
several like school things back in like
okay.
I think like middle school. I read it, and then I read it in college as well. So
hmm Yeah, it was an A24 movie. It came out a few years ago. It's got Dev Patel as I think Lancelot maybe or Gawain or something. It's one of the Knights of the Round Table. But yeah, he's off to kill. I think it's like the Giant of the Woods or something.
yeah,
But yeah, it's really good, super good. A24, they always make good movies. But yeah, if you read the book, hopefully you like the movie. We'll see. But but yeah, I'm in the mood for seeing something, but there's just nothing out that I want to see until Gladiator. So
yeah.
we'll get to it probably at
Movies
some point.
are yeah. I mean, they've got that anime spin-off of Lord of the Rings. Like it's another like
Oh yeah,
Middle Earth sort of story that they're doing.
War of the Rohirrim.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'll definitely be checking that out.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. Is that a this year thing? That's a next year thing.
it might be an end of this year, like a December thing.
Yeah, I remember it's either late or early. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I will definitely go see that in the theater. Just Lord of the Rings, anything. Like, it's just, I love it. Love it. I want them to make, like, they're making the Search for Gollum or the Hunt for Gollum, which is, like, not.
Is it based off that really good Gollum video game that they had?
Oh, yeah, it's a tie in, did you know? But they're bringing back, like, Andy Serkis and stuff for it. So, and it's like, it's going to focus on Aragorn, like, hunting him in the wilderness, which is interesting. It's basically an appendices movie. They're trying to mine the appendices in Lord of the Rings for content. So hopefully it ends up being good. I think Peter Jackson's either producing or directing it. So hopefully it is good.
Man, that Gollum
even the Hobbit movies. Oh yeah. We need to really rehash how good that one is.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Primo contento. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's almost time for a rewatch of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit stuff. The Hobbit movies are not perfect by any means.
No.
They're not even that good, but I like them.
That book
I
is like easily like the best like Lord of the Rings content ever written in my opinion. Like I love that better than any of the Lord of the Rings books personally. I love that Hobbit book.
Yeah, I like the Hobbit a lot too. The audiobook by Andy Serkis is unbelievable.
I haven't checked that one out.
So good.
I just read the
Oh, it's
original.
so good. It is the way to listen to that book if you're listening to an audiobook.
Yeah.
He does such a good. He
liked
did
those
the
movies alright,
Silmarillion. Yeah. He did a Silmarillion too, and then all three of the Lord of the Rings books too, Andy Serkis. And he does all the voices. It's so good. Yeah, that's Dick Drift for this week. That's the third episode. It's probably we might name it after the mature app or Turok or something. I don't know. I guess that's up to you, but think of the children whenever you name this episode, I guess.
Yeah, we'll try to keep it, away from maybe Seaman. We gotta watch out for him.
Seaman, yeah. So a couple things next week. I think we're going to do a proper review, or at least I am, of Silent Hill 2 Remake. I think I'm actually going to drill down for a good hour about that game.
Yeah.
And I kind of talked about it in light spoilies at the top of the show, but I think I'm really going to drill down about really what I loved about it. You get the gist of how I felt about it in the discussion we had, but I really want to kind of take it point by point and talk about, everything that I thought about. I think an hour is the perfect time to do that, where I'm not over talking, but I'm not. So that'll be in the off week for sure.
For that,
that'll be a final destination.
Yeah.
That'll be the first inaugural review of our new game podcast called Final Destination.
You're starting a
where
lot of
if there's a new
podcasts.
game, yeah, we haven't done enough of them. So we're starting kind of two things. Really. It's kind of two prongs. We haven't really. So we have the two main efforts, which is the Stick Drift podcast and Crash Courses, which by this point you know what each are. Stick Drift is the flagship show where we talk about literally whatever we want, all new games, kind of like the base that everything kind of springs out from. Crash Courses are topical supplemental pods that we talk about in the off weeks in between our recordings of the main pod. And the two things we wanted to add that we've talked about are review podcasts, and maybe we'll add the movie/TV podcast later when we have something to talk about. This is something we kind of spoke about in this episode, honestly. So we'll circle back to that. But the two formats are going to be the Final Destination, or it's just called Final Destination, and it's going to be about a new game that we finished. Like for instance, it'll be Final Destination Silent Hill 2 remake or something, or 2024, and we're going to get into reviewing the new one. And we're going to have another review effort where we play old stuff. And it's a working title. We might not keep it. The Dreaded Backlog. And it's going to be reviewing whatever and whenever, any game that we want. Anything that we've finished. I think it's a perfect catch-all for like, hey, you finished Shadow Tower, say, where you're going to review it and drop it here if you want to. And talk it doesn't even have to be an hour. It can be shorter. It can be longer. The reviews, they will take as long as we want it. It doesn't have to be an arbitrary hour to 45 minutes like a crash course. Really, we just wanted to do that for the crash courses to stay on topic as much as possible. But for the reviews, we will talk at length about literally what. So that's going to be something that you will see when we finish a game. If we feel like we want to review it, for realsies, we will throw it in either the new game bucket or the old game bucket, Final Destination, or the Dreaded Backlog with the title bucket. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on that, Noah?
Yeah, that sounds great, and I'll kind of tease a little bit of content here as well.
Ooh, please.
Podcast, I talked about wanting to talk about like dreamlike games, so that'll probably be my next like crash course. When it's my week to do crash courses, I'll probably do like put together something with like what do I think are really good staples of like that dreamlike aesthetic. I've got this to show my like dedication to this like aesthetic, right? I built a Magic the Gathering deck that I own, like a 100 card commander deck around this card called Myojin of Cryptic Dreams. And
oh, cool.
If you look up the card art for that, like it's a really, really cool card, and the effect is really fun too. It's a fun little like casual combo deck, but so like dreams and like dreamlike surrealism is like that's like my like forte. That's one of the big reasons why I love like the 32-bit era is because it encapsulates that sort of like dreamlike quality really well. And so
sure,
like it paints a real like well-established surrealist picture. Like my favorite like classical painter is Hieronymus Bosch. So
oh sure, yeah,
that's I kind of go around online with the handle Astronomus these days, and it's a play off of Hieronymus Bosch, and it's also a play off of Anonymous and Astro. So it's kind of a lot of things mixed into one thing, a lot of passions mixed into one thing. So
yeah, my handle is Nukatronic, which is just electronic with Nuka-Cola from Fallout.
Fair enough. Yeah, it took me a long time to settle on this one. So, but
yeah, we come to our handles in different ways for sure. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, I really want to hear that. I love those. I don't know, vibes-based crash courses that we've been talking about and coming up with.
Yeah.
And so on the YouTube front, at some point, whenever we feel comfortable and whenever I actually have the wherewithal to actually do this, we want to launch into some essays and stuff, and we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver for sure. But
yeah,
I have been writing a ton of YouTube ideas for subjects I want to broach, and that's going to be in the works at some point, I think. And who knows when it happens, but I have a lot to talk about in terms of just like games as a medium and I think you do too. So
Yeah.
that's going to be something you can look forward to at some point. There's no timetable for this. We're busy people with busy lives. This is a casual effort.
Yeah.
If it became bigger than that, then we would focus on it in a different way.
Yeah.
For now, we kind of do it as we can. So
those essays would be like scripted, and they would be like
they would.
They would have actual like footage mixed in there.
Editing. Yes.
Yeah, lots of editing, lots of footage, and so they'd be a lot more like professional quality than these sort of podcasts that are just our thoughts with just some like bullet points that we run off of, and then we just kind of let it go naturally with these sort of podcasts. And that's kind of how the crash courses are as well. They're a little bit more structured, but they're still like just
a little bit more
our thoughts. I think the Final Destinations are going to be a little bit more scripted and like a little bit more like, this is our actual like, hey, this is how we're talking about this game, reviewing this game. It's not going to be like, we've kind of talked about this, it's not going to be like a 1 out of 10 or a 8 out of 10. We're just gonna kind of be like, yeah, we like this game, or we really like this game, or this game was all right, or this game, it has something there, but it's just not for us. Those are that's kind of the vibe we want to get with our rating system. We never want to be like, this game has no value, because games have value. Real people put real time into making a game. Unless if it's like an actual like scam game, to where they're just trying to scam you out of your money, chances are somebody cared about a game, even if it didn't turn out well.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was somebody out there who cared about Concord. I know Concord's banned, but somebody cared.
Somebody did.
Somebody cared about Concord. Somebody
enough
cared
to
about
finish it 100% before the servers got shut down. I mean, somebody loved it enough.
Even like the developers, though. Like there was some developer on that team who was really passionate about building Concord, and so there was artistic
right, and you see that when you played it.
Yeah,
you see that when you play it, but you could tell it just wasn't going to last.
Yeah. But
you see it more.
Pretty much any like commercial game, right, is going to have artistic intent behind it of some sort of passion put into it.
Inherently, it's because it's a bunch of artists working. You're going to get that whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So passionate people make passionate things. And, not all the time. I mean, you're seeing more often than not that bets are not paying. Like, for instance, and this is, kind of time-stamping this, but it's not a huge deal. The Prince of Persia Lost Crown team, they put up this game this year, and now they're disbanded because of, it didn't make enough money. And a lot of teams aren't afforded a second chance, but there's so much passion and creativity in that time specifically. It's a shame that they won't get another crack at it,
That's what we want to highlight on this show, though, so that we don't have cases like that where passion is unrewarded. We want to see passion rewarded, even if things don't pan out, on all fronts, because there's a lot that goes into a game besides the gameplay. And so we want to make sure that those passions are put on the forefront on our show.
Yeah, games are just they're minor miracles when they come out.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of sympathy for what it takes to make a game, especially having seen it. Not firsthand, but with seeing documentaries, seeing accounts, seeing people on Twitter after the fact with games that have, succeeded or failed, talking about their experience. Especially with the Concord stuff, the devs were extremely unhappy how it shook out for them, and they were in limbo for a while in terms of like the future of the studio and even the game, where Sony kind of pulled it off and they went like, hey, we're going to take this offline and restructure things. Not a month and a half, 2 months later, it doesn't exist anymore, and neither does that studio. So, we want to highlight passion 100%, because with art, there is intent for sure. Even if a game doesn't seem like it could be artistic, merit has gone into that for sure. So,
like Bubsy 3D,
that's kind of what we're.
Awesome game, very artistic game.
Sure, we like Bubsy 3D. Someone put some art in that game. Yep, you're right. Someone did that.
Listen. I'll talk about it some other time, but there was a lot of interesting ideas in Bubsy 3D, all right?
Sure. I will grant it that. Yeah, I will give you that. And that's all we'll talk about. Concord, I broke my own rule. And Bubsy 3D, that'll be a crash course for yourself. So to tease so we're going to have like I said, it's going to be a off week. I'm going to do my crash course in addition to my remake talk of Silent Hill 2. The Final Destination will be recorded probably the same day. as my crash course. I'm probably going to go bing, bang, boom, back and forth, and we're going to have it up by the end of the week, I think.
Yeah,
so
I'll do some
my crash
editing on
course is, yeah, for sure. My crash course is going to be on the Assassin's Creed franchise, I think.
Awesome.
The games as a whole, yeah. Why you should care about them, the games you shouldn't care about, basically the essential things you need to know. Because I have played every one of them pretty much. The only ones I have not finished, I have not finished the very first one, and I have not finished a Valhalla. That's it. I've played every single game in that series. I can tell you what are the good ones, what are the bad ones, what you should look for, what you should not.
It's a series I've always wanted to get into, so I don't know how to really get into it.
It's a fascinating thing because, it's a fascinating series to talk about because, honestly, Ubisoft's future rides on this being a successful endeavor for them. They've already mapped like the future of this series out, as well as like their company hinging on it being a success. Like it's an important franchise for Ubisoft, and it's interesting to talk about at the very least. So we'll see how long it gets. I'll try to keep it brisk at an hour, but with so many games, I might get carried away. It's going to be tough to rein in. So I'm going to have to do some major editing of my own thoughts. So it'll be a little bit more scripted. It'll be more note-takey. It's a doozy, for sure. So yeah, that's going to be next week. I don't have a name for it or anything, but it's going to be about Assassin's Creed, and mostly it's going to be about my feelings on Assassin's Creed Odyssey and how ultimately disappointed I was in that game. Ultimately, I have a lot of thoughts about that game. That is the game I've spent the most time with this year in finishing. I've spent 160 hours in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I regret that. I really do. It felt like I was finishing everything just to finish it by the end, and I was extremely disappointed in it. But I will get into it just as a teaser. That's kind of the gist of the crash course. So you got that to look forward to next week. I think we did the darn thing tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, it's darn done.
I think it's going to sound good too. I feel very confident about that. So let's hope we nail this one.
Yep. All right.
Yeah. All right. For Noah Rada, I'm Power Glover. This has been Stick Drift Podcast. Stay tuned for our review, the Final Destination next week, and the Crash Course. Thank you for listening.
Peace.
Goodbye.